Council. Today is September the 12th, 2006. It's our first meeting in just over 3 weeks, so we want to welcome members of the public and our viewing audience here. The Los Angeles City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Our meetings are broadcast live on Channel 35 and also rebroadcast in the evening. We also are available through our city's homepage at www.lacity.org, where you can catch a live streaming video of our meetings. And we are also lastly available by calling Council phone at 213-621-CITY. And you can listen to the proceedings of the City Council and also our committees as well. We have right now 7 members of the City Council here pursuant to Council rules. Councilmember Huizar, Labange, Parks, Perry, Rosendahl, and Zine. I would like to have our other council members join us. Councilmember Cardenas, Councilmember Hahn, Councilmember Padilla, Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Weiss, and Councilmember Wesson. We are waiting in order to have 10 members or 2/3 and a quorum, and we will begin. Mr. Smith, thank you for joining us. We're waiting 2 more members. As soon as we have those 2, we will begin the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. We are now at 9 members, waiting 1 more council member. And thank you, Mr. Reyes. Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Huizar, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Colleagues, if I could ask everybody for their attention. As is customary at the beginning of the week, we begin with a salute to the flag. Considering the day that we had yesterday and the 5th year anniversary of September 11th, I would ask us all in chambers to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And before we begin the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like us all to just have a moment of silence. We lost Angelenos on September 11th in 2001. And Los Angeles was a target of those attacks, and the other Americans, as well as people from around the world who died as a result. If we could have a moment of silence for them before the pledge. If you'd please place your hands over your heart. Join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Perry moves and Mr. Reyes seconds. If there's no objections, those will be approved.
Mandatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Smith moves and Ms. Hahn seconds. If there's no objection, those 2 will be unanimously approved. Next item.
Before beginning the regular agenda, Mr. President, item number 26, there is a request to continue that matter to September 20th.
Okay, colleagues, is there any objection to continuing item number 26? If not, that'll be unanimously approved.
On the regular agenda, items noticed for public hearings, items 1 and 2 are both public hearings for business improvement districts, and I believe there are cards on both items.
Okay, let's call those special for cards.
Next items are items noticed for public hearing also, and they are street lighting district ordinances, items 3 through 7, and then item number 8, there's an instruction to prepare an ordinance.
Okay. Are there any cards on 3 through 8?
No, no cards on those items.
Why don't we open and close the public hearing? Anybody wishing to call those special? 3 through 8? If not, let's open the roll on the balance, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items, Mr. President, are items for which public hearings have been held, items 9 through 45. 9, 10, 11, and 12 are commissioners, and committee reports have been submitted this morning.
Okay, let's hold the commissioners on the desk, please.
And then that would leave before council items 13 through 45.
Colleagues, any specials, items 13 through 45? Mr. Parks? 37? Number 37 for Mr. Parks. Any other specials, colleagues? We are 13 through 45. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, on the balance, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items. Can we send 30 forthwith if there's no objection, please? Next items.
Next items, Mr. President, are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 46 through 134. 10 votes are required for consideration, and I believe there are cards on several of the items.
Okay, let's call 46 special. Let's hold that for Commissioner. And do you have the cards? Do we know which ones?
The ones I have listed so far are 49, 61, 70, 80, and 110, and I don't know if additional cards.
Yeah, we have 46 down.
Okay.
So it was 49, 110, and what were the ones in between? If you could just go a little slower.
Okay, I have cards on 49, 61, 70, 80, and 110.
Got it. Thank you. Yes, 58 from Mr. Rosendahl. And Mr. Reyes?
Yes, items 63 and 64.
63
We can
and
continue
60.
those for 60 days.
Okay, is there any objection to a 60-day continuance on 63, 64?
And that, the new date then would be, 60 days would be November
The
14th.
14th? Okay,
Thank you very much.
that will be unanimously approved. Yes, Mr. Padilla, and then Mr. Parks?
After this vote, if I can move reconsideration for 24 and 27, just for a couple of questions.
24 and 27, okay. Mr. Parks?
On 45, we just asked to move the budget and finance report, and on 62, move the ITGS report.
And also for council's information on number 62, there is a correction on recommendation number 4. It should read the account number is incorrect. It should be W310.
Just to change the account number?
Yeah, it's
technical?
just a typographical
Okay.
error.
We already moved 40, we already voted on 45. Was that the budget and finance report, Madam Clerk, or were those in?
Actually, there were 2 reports, and Budget and Finance does concur with the other reports, so
Okay.
council can actually adopt both.
Okay, great. All right, any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none on the balance, if we can open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items?
And that would take council back to the items called special. The first item called special, unless council, do you wish to do the reconsiderations, or?
Yes, let's do the reconsiderations of 24 and 27. We can please open the roll on reconsideration, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, and we will call those special as well.
And I
why don't-
believe those were called special for Mr. Padilla.
Okay. And if we can take public comment at this time. It is now time for general public comment on issues that are not agendized on our agenda but are nevertheless under our jurisdiction. We'd like to ask Kendra Glade to come forward, and if we can set the clock for 2 minutes, please. And following Kendra will be Carla Glade. If I can please ask everyone for their attention for public comment. Thank you. Welcome to City Hall.
Thank you. I've never done this before. I'm here today because I'm appalled to hear of a tax-paying citizen being barred from City Hall. I believe, Jan Perry, you're familiar with this case. Sister Samaya, Queen Negus Samaya Kambui had a case. LAPD illegally raided her house under Proposition 215. She was legally growing her medication, and she has been trying to get full restitution An agent for the city attorney, Craig Miller, was, in my opinion, inappropriately interacting with Sister Samaya. Sister Samaya was directing her disappointment to the right person by speaking with Craig Miller. Craig Miller could not handle the stress of his own position, and so he filed a restraining order against Sister Samaya. If he cannot handle the stress of his own position, then maybe he needs to go to another office or file for disability. But for Sister Samaya to have a restraining order to be at City Hall when it is her right as a legal tax-paying citizen, that appalls me. Maybe I'm just young and idealistic, but I've always been under the impression that the U.S. government, including state and city, was by the people, for the people, and the people need to be here. I'm here to request that this gets some more attention, and I mean, it's just ridiculous. The government is our civil servants. Craig Miller needs to go as far as I'm concerned. He is not serving the people. Sister Samaya should not be barred from City Hall. And that's what I came to speak of.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you here today. Carla Glade is our next speaker, and then Sylvia Hawkins will follow her.
Hello, I'm Carla Glade. I'm Kendra Glade's mother. I'm here because Sister Queen Negus Samaya Kambui was not restored. She was partially restored, and Jan Perry did make a few efforts. However, I have completed appraisal training through the United States government, and there's a difference between replacing something and restoring. She has I don't know what that's called, plaster drywall instead of plaster in her house. She now has post-traumatic stress disorder from LAPD, who is here to serve the people. We are the people. We hire you. We pay your taxes. We are the reason you're here. And City Attorney Rocky Delgaya, I hope you're listening to me, because this is addressed to you too. This is one of your people that has illegally used our funds to go after a little tiny 80-pound veteran of the United States to break down her doors, illegally trash her home, steal her plants, give them back to her. They were premature. They weren't even ready to be used as medicine. Now she's been placed on morphine because her medicine is not available to her. She has been robbed of her medicine. I'm glad you think this is funny. I'm directing this to you. I'm directing this to you, and you're sitting there laughing. Thank you for your attention.
Just for your, I've been writing the information down
Okay, well,
regarding
I
your
saw
matter,
you
and we'll
laughing.
be contacting you.
Okay, I saw
I'm
you
just a
laughing,
jovial
and
guy.
that bothers me. And I also want to say, power to the people. That's why you're here. You get your money from us, and I am tired of seeing us ripped off. Do your jobs, people. Support your people in California. We love the people.
Thank you. And I know Ms. Perry's staff is speaking with both of our first speakers, so thank you very much for that. Ms. Hawkins is our next speaker, and Jim McQuiston will follow that.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ms. Sylvia Hawkins. At this time, I am against any redeveloping of houses or redeveloping of jail cells inside or under. In the Lafayette Park area of Crenshaw, in the 8th District, there are too many houses, landlords, and owners that has been replaced, not the owners any longer, because of the removing and changing of the front of the house and the front look of the house and changing of the street number, not the street address name, the street number on the houses. This is now a fake address that is not called it off the map and is not in existence any longer in Los Angeles. We're asking Hawkeye 8 military to, at this time, to close all city halls and all churches because of their reason of not wanting to pay their bills, of changing the address and location. Now, those who want to mail them their bills or invoice It is going to the wrong address. It is illegal to change a number, whether it's a house or apartment, to cover up where you are located so you won't receive your bills. So we ask everyone, Special House 8 military, to please be aware of these things that is happening in the Crenshaw District. It was dealing with houses and schools. If no one pay their bills, no one can find the person to pay their bills. It is called steal. No one can live in USA free. Thank you very much. My name is Ms. Sylvia Hawkins.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Next speaker is Jim McQuiston, and then Matt Dowd will be after that.
Jim McQuiston, East Hollywood Community Association. My comment goes really, I'm very disappointed because the council president didn't take advantage of appointing some commissioners because the 45-day rule ran out for the mayor to
I'm
make
sorry to
the
stop you, Mr.
appointments.
McQuiston. We checked on that, and the mayor had submitted it in a timely fashion.
Yes, and there was this opportunity, but unfortunately, it wasn't taken.
Our next speaker is Matt Dowd.
Thank you very much. Nice to be back on the merry-go-round. A 2-minute ride today. Should be nice. I got a few things to say because lots happened in 3 weeks. If you're wondering what this is, that's where the $1 incent lawsuit has got to now. Look at that. So I got a message for the EAA. Anybody who's listening, if you want to know where your money is, because I believe you do equal work and you should have equal pay. Yous are going on strike, causing a rift at City Hall because Rocky isn't serving you properly with the injunction not to go on strike, okay? A superior judge said that Proposition R is illegal under the state constitution, but you're wasting money now fighting something that's already ruled illegal. Now you're making Rocky crawl back for more money to fight that. The LAUSD is going to sue now over the 1381. There's more public money. You're fighting us with this one. And where's the EAA now? See, there's the money right there. So the court case is continuing. I proved that we have a particular message down there on the beach. My one's called Pacific Breeze. I hand out flyers. The communication is established. And under the First Amendment, you're protected if you have particularized speech. And you can't parcel out the commercial and the non-commercial. So you can't tell someone what they can and can't sell as long as it's inextricably intertwined with the message. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, our last speaker is Donna Doherty. Donna Doherty is our next speaker. Sir, Donna Doherty is our next speaker. Welcome, Ms. Doherty.
Good morning and welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good vacation. My name is Donna Doherty. I'm here for the Griffith Observatory Access Initiative. And I thank you for the moment of silence for the people from 9/11. And one of the things that caught my attention over the weekend with all of the programs about 9/11 was their review. Once again, I hope everybody's listening, because they are having a big review in New York about emergency preparedness. And it made me think, what's happening here in this city about emergency preparedness for Griffith Observatory? We have no ramps at the front 4 doors of that building. We should have them. We don't have to have ramps. We can have sloping walkways. It's called universal design. It is the design of now all over the rest of the world. Where are we? We're back in the last century. We shouldn't be. We need the universal design, and I see other members talking at the same time that I am, and I suppose you aren't listening to what I'm saying, but I sure wish you would. Because this, I've been told now, and this came from one of your top people who has blocked this all the way through. and that is Mitch Pomerantz, the ADA coordinator for the city of LA, said, "I've been wanting to tell you something for a long time. For 5 years, I've wanted to tell you, stop annoying us." I am thrilled. I am so thrilled that he told me that, because we've gotten extra ramps up there because of our annoying people. Wonderful. And the second one was, please do us the favor of going to the Department of Justice and sue us. We're going to do that too. Thank you, Mitch, and thank you, everybody. We will do that because we need those sloping walkways at the front of that building, and I'm very tired as a teacher of being told there's no front or back anymore. There is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. There was one card that was misfiled. My final speaker will be Zuma Dog.
Sorry for the clerical error. Yeah, Zuma Dog, you got so many topics. Let's get right back. Sorry, I'm wiping away your vacation in about 2 minutes now. First thing, I wrote a song about the #1 issue that this country's facing right now, and city, and it goes like this. Say no to illegal immigration, a safety hazard, and it's gonna sink our nation. Draining funding from the schools to police
Mr. Dog, if
stations.
I can ask you to please keep your comments to speech and not to singing right now. Or at least, or to keep the volume down. Thank you.
Okay, well, let me say, a safety hazard, and it's gonna sink our nation. Draining funding from the schools to police station. Say no to illegal immigration. Just say no to illegal immigration. It's offensive to the legals in our nation. Election stolen because your ethics are on vacation. Say no to illegal immigration. Mayor V gonna serve a short duration if you don't stop aiding illegal immigration. And while we're talking about elections being stolen, we got an election season coming up in November, but something that happened last election season is that elections are stolen because the politicians run the polls. Mayor V, he has his people running the polls. He has drop-off places around the city where people coordinate. Buses pick these people up. They take them to the polls. They don't check IDs. They vote for people who hadn't showed up, and they don't. That's called having an election stolen. And let's face it, a lot of those people shouldn't even be in this country, y'all. So we're going to have people at all the polls making sure no buses are rolling in with a bunch of people who shouldn't be voting. Now let's move on to the special way. Oh, by the way, these LAUSD town hall meetings they had, the mayor bust his own people in to give his support. Then when you wanted to be opposition, you're told, sorry, it's a private meeting. You can't come into the town hall meeting, even though I saw it come through the waiver fee that the city paid for that public meeting. So this is how Mayor V ran away with LAUSD. And I'd like to say special waiver fee scam. Stop it, and I'll be talking about that next. Zuma Dog, so glad to be back, y'all. Hootie-hoo!
Thank you very much. Our final speaker for general public comment. That closes our general public comment. I'd like to recognize Mr. Zine and then Ms. Gruhl. Mr. Zine?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to comment on Ms. Doherty's concerns about the observatory. I toured that recently with Mr. Pomerantz, Department of Disability, some other representatives, and there was great public access for the disabled. Mr. Pomerantz is blind with a seeing eye dog. He had no problem navigating through the facility. A number of new elevators have been installed where they didn't have elevators. And as far as the access to the new observatory, which I understand is going to be opening soon to the public, there is great access and accountability to individuals with any type of disability. So I just wanted to go on the record that I personally toured it with the representatives from the City Department of Disability, and it meets all ADA specifications. I think they've exceeded the specifications to accommodate any and all individuals, and it's a wonderful new exhibit for the City of Los Angeles. When it opens to the public, I'm sure there'll be many people going there, but I just wanted to comment that it is far superior to what we had before, and it does comply with any and all and exceeds ADA requirements for all disabled, blind, and otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Colleagues, I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming volunteer teachers from Thailand who came here this summer to teach the language and culture to Thai American children. They were hosted by the Wat Thai Temple in my district in North Hollywood. They are leaving this Saturday, but wanted to see how our city council worked and to come into our city hall building and see how local government meeting being held here this morning. Their organizer is Sumana Bara, and I just want to say welcome to Los Angeles to all of you, and appreciate you bringing your culture and education to the children of our community. Let's give them a great round of applause and thank them very much for coming. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much. And welcome to City Hall. We're very pleased to have you here. We'd like to reconsider one more item for Ms. Gruhl, item number 38. If we can please open the roll on reconsideration, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
And if we can call that special, please.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti.
You're welcome. All right, if we can take up the commissioners first.
First commissioners are items number 9 and 10, and those are confirmations to the Human Relations Commission. And the committee met this morning, and committee reports have been submitted to the council.
Okay. I can ask the nominees to step forward. And Mr. Labange, we have the Human Relations Commission nominees, if you'd like to give them your seal of approval. Oh, I'm sorry, it's for Education and Neighborhoods. My mistake, Mr. Labange, but thank you. So I'll recognize Mr. Padilla as the chair of the committee for these nominees.
Yes, we had the two ladies in front of us in committee just this morning. Colleagues, these are mayoral appointees to the Human Relations Commission. Well, one appointment, one reappointment. And the committee wholeheartedly recommends approval. So we'll afford them an opportunity, as we did in committee this morning, to spend just a minute or two talking about themselves and the interest in this committee. But the committee did unanimously recommend confirmation.
All right. Thank you. We want to thank you for putting yourselves forward for service as well. And if there's nobody else who wishes to be heard, let's open the roll on the nominations, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Congratulations, commissioners, and thank you. Next, commission appointments.
These are from the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners.
Okay. Again, Mr. Padilla, I guess we have two more. Which numbers are those, Madam Clerk? We've got
I'm sorry, those are 11 and 12. And
11 and
Mr. Daniel
12.
Gattaca and Ms.
Great.
Ain-Suk Lee.
Mr. Padilla.
And same thing, Mr. President and colleagues, two wonderful candidates for the Board of Neighborhood Empowerment, or Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, both with tremendous and vast experience in community organizing and at grassroots levels in different parts of the city of Los Angeles. Committee got to know them a little bit more this morning, and we enthusiastically recommend confirmation.
Thank you. Mr. Zine, I'd like to recognize, then Mr. Smith, and then Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you. Good morning, both of you. Neighborhood councils, the grassroots effort by the City of Los Angeles to empower people. Councilmember Hahn and I are former commissioners with the Reform Commission and the Charter Commission, where we reformed the city and we brought about neighborhood councils. We've had serious problems with neighborhood councils, with the election process, with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, trying to get it in line. Great frustration. I represent the Southwest Valley, and many of the people out there, Woodland Hills, Tarzana, West Hills, Canoga Park, Presidio, and Winnetka, are throwing their hands up and saying, we're going to move away from this because it's not working. It's frustrating. And what I urge you to do is to look into the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, which the Commission's responsible for, and make sure that they're responsive to the people. All the people in neighborhood councils are volunteers. They're doing it out of the goodness of their heart to help with the communities. We had a meeting in Van Nuys City Hall, and we had a council meeting about 2 hours and discussed the elections. When half of the elections are postponed because of some impropriety, there's something wrong. When 50% of the students are failing in school, we know there's a problem. When 50% of the elections are not being held because there's some type of a problem, and I refer to as sometimes nitpicking. So I just caution you on that, because we look at neighborhood empowerment, we look at neighborhood councils to be that link between the communities and government. And I come from the San Fernando Valley, where people wanted to secede, and we said, don't secede, we want to be responsive to you, we want to get you involved. And when we went to the Charter Reform Commission, we put that in as a component so people would want to be satisfied, so we'd stay as a whole city. And your commission is critically important. It's funded. Neighborhood councils are funded. They receive substantial funds from the City of Los Angeles to carry out the responsibilities. But what I find coming back to me from members of neighborhood councils in my district is the great frustration, the impediments that are put in place by the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. So I welcome you on board, but keep your eyes open to that, because they complain to me, they complain to my staff, they'll be complaining to you. When we need to work together with them, and we need to help these citizens of our community, the residents of our community that want to volunteer to help neighborhood councils succeed. Have you heard of any of the problems associated with it, or any involvement in neighborhood councils, either of you or both of you?
Yes.
Can you respond to that?
I think that any story, we would be disappointed if any community member felt that they would want to turn away from neighborhood councils. I think it's a very important creation that the people of LA voted in 1999, and our commitment is that this is a great responsibility for ourselves. We're going to take the time to do a lot of homework, to study and making sure that that the mandate of the neighborhood councils are fully met and they're as successful as they are meant to be.
Thank you. And sir?
Likewise, I agree that we should definitely do our homework so we can give a very informed opinion on what's going on.
Okay, and I would also welcome you to come to the communities and conduct your commission meetings in the communities with the neighborhood council members within the different regions of the city. Instead of traveling to downtown, come to them and hear some of their issues and concerns, because we want to keep them alive, we want to keep them well, we want to keep the city together. Welcome you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to congratulate you and welcome you to the city family. I have a concern about neighborhood councils and the way that Bonk and Dunn have been managing it. And I think if we looked last year, and I forget the numbers exactly, but something in the order, there were 52 neighborhood council elections that were held last year. About 39 or 40 of them were contested because of election irregularities. That means there's something really, really seriously wrong with the system. And so I'd like your viewpoint about what you believe Bonk needs to do to direct Dunn and whatever to make sure that these issues are resolved. Do you have any ideas? Because we cannot afford to allow neighborhood councils to devolve into little fights over personalities. And that's what's happening, and I see it happening because less than half the people that voted in the first round of neighborhood council elections voted in the second round. Neighborhood councils that had 200 people vote have 50 people vote now and 80 people vote. So there's something really wrong with participation, and I think it goes back to we're allowing personalities to take over neighborhood councils rather than the ideal approach, and that is we want to do something good for our community. So I'd like to hear just quickly your opinion about that issue about elections, for one, which Mr. Zine brought up briefly, and then any concept you can tell me that gives me some confidence that you're going to go in there with really an iron fist and try and get this system to work the way it was envisioned. So I appreciate some comments.
I think that for ourselves, we certainly have ideas, but in terms of actually, we feel that right now it's premature to present any ideas. What we think what we need to do right now is, again, basically do our homework and understand more about how neighborhood councils can really fulfill its mission. What we can say is we do believe in the principles and the concept of the neighborhood councils itself, which is a concept of ensuring that citizens can participate fully in city government and have a voice. And so it was an important creation, and we want to make sure that it actually does fulfill the mandate itself. We also believe in the principle of accessibility and making sure that all members of Los Angeles, regardless of citizenship, has a place in the neighborhood councils itself. So I think that there are principles that we can push forward, which is accessibility, ensuring that there is an effort to provide capacity for neighborhood councils, adequate training, or whatever support that is needed for the neighborhood councils. So I think that in terms of specifics, that's a little premature for myself, but I do know that we will support, again, the principles of representation, diversity, strengthening capacity, and sustainability of the neighborhood councils.
Likewise, I would like to look at all the issues first. I mean, I know that one of the bigger problems is outreach in terms of making sure that there's a broader base of constituents being informed about elections, about the neighborhood councils, and the power of the neighborhood councils. I think once that happens, we'll get a wider spectrum of folks involved in neighborhood councils, and also training. I think training to diffuse some of the personal conflicts involved in neighborhood councils. I think that training is extremely important. We've got to make sure there's enough for the neighborhood councils.
Thank you for that. I would just caution you that I think we all around here and everybody involved have the vision and the principle and the concept. I think what we need now is structure, and that's what's been missing for the last couple of years, is structure that neighborhood councils know what their boundaries are, what their focus should be, and that's something that has not been provided by Bonk in the past nor done. So I hope we're going to get some focus now and begin to move this great concept forward. And that's what I just want to impart to you, that I'm looking forward to that kind of leadership, and I hope you'll bring that to the board. And congratulations, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl is next, and then Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning.
If I could ask both of you a little bit about yourself. Daniel, I hear you are presently a site director for Chrysalis.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your background.
Well, for the last 21 years, I've been residing in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. I've worked in the Northeast San Fernando Valley for the last 15, 9 of them in nonprofit. I'm currently a site director of Chrysalis in Pacoima. It's a nonprofit agency that helps folks basically obtain jobs through teaching them the soft skills of job employment. I know you've been very familiar with our Santa Monica office, but the Pacoima office is just as similar, although we do specialize in helping, obviously, Latino folks obtain jobs.
So why do you want to be a commissioner, and what's your vision when you become this commissioner after we vote you in today? What are your goals and objectives?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think one of my biggest objectives is making sure that the community knows about the neighborhood councils. I mean, I sit on different boards in the Northeast Valley, and it's usually the same players, the same people making the same decisions. And I want to see it, again, more people involved, more students, more nonprofits involved. I work in a nonprofit in the Northeast Valley, and my local neighborhood council has yet to really ever contact me and talk to me and see how we can work together. I think neighborhood councils should be working with nonprofits a little bit more. A lot of times they're working on the same issues, and it seems like, why are they going in two separate directions when they can pair up and work together?
I like that. I like what you're saying there. And tell me, I understand that you're the executive director of the National Korean American Service and Education Consortium. Explain what that is and your background.
Correct. NACASAC is a civil rights organization that was formed about 12 years ago. We have a local community center here in Los Angeles, the Korean Resource Center. And what we do is not only provide important direct services to Korean Americans, but we do address issues around immigrant rights, and also around civic participation and enhancing the full participation of all, including immigrants, including Korean Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, and ethnic minorities. My interest in the neighborhood councils is, again, about the concept of, for myself being an immigrant and knowing that many Korean Americans are immigrants, often there's challenges to participation in city government and having a voice. And we recognize that, and I feel that there's experiences and models that we have been able to perfect in terms of ensuring that there are no barriers to accessibility for Korean Americans and other minorities in government or in electoral politics, and I want to see that translated or seen in reality through the neighborhood councils as well.
I appreciate both of your comments about that. What we have found, I have 8 neighborhood councils in the 11th district, but the majority, by far, of the members of these councils are homeowners. 50% of my constituents are renters. Do you see a vigorous marketing strategy of bringing the renters into this so it really does represent people who live in the district?
Certainly, homeowners, renters, all the people of Los Angeles need to recognize themselves as stakeholders in the neighborhood council. So there will be an attempt to ensure that there is full representation.
I mean, I think we're at a time that's it's perfect to target renters, because there's a lot of issues that are affecting renters right now, and now it's their time to step up and have a voice, and so that they're not the minority in terms of being, voiceful about the issues that are affecting them, the cost, the rents, the changing apartments into condos and stuff like that. And I really think that that's when it's extremely important for renters to step up, to the plate and be involved. And I think the only way that can happen is through outreach, and let them explain that they now can have a voice if they're part of the neighborhood council.
My last question is, you might have heard about the discussion we've had here at the council. My esteemed colleague Janice Hahn and I have taken a strong position on opening up what we call council files, which gives a neighborhood council an opportunity to become part of the official approval process or discussion process or things like that. Do either of you have an opinion about giving neighborhood councils the opportunity to start a council file?
At this point, I feel that we need to understand more the issue before we take an opinion on this.
Appreciate that.
I feel the same. I mean, I would wish to see more neighborhood councils actually submitting information to the community impact on the agenda items, so that's like, I think, a first step for them to actually start empowering themselves and start looking at the way it flows and the way, you could actually get some legislation passed.
Right. Well, congratulations to the two of you. We look forward to working with both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Ms. Perry is next, and then Mr. Cardenas.
much, Mr. President. I wanted to ask a question about your thinking. I have several situations in the southern part of my district with a few neighborhood councils where the members are verbally abusive to each other, and I've introduced motions in the past to assist in them governing themselves, and they often do it even in front of city staff from Dunn, and still it remains unchecked. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that. I'm still concerned that in some cases people are going to get hurt. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that any cases of such abuse is unacceptable, and certainly one of our priorities was to ensure the public safety of all, so that no resident of Los Angeles feels that they have to be physically intimidated from participation. So I think that's something you have to address.
Because the commissioners are usually not at the meetings, that there's some mechanism that you develop as commissioners so that staff actually reports back to the ED, so that you know. A few weeks ago, a meeting was noticed where the president of the group moved the meeting place several times. It ended up in his house. And, there's nobody out there to check that other than people who call in and complain to our office.
I think that's a really good proposal itself, to have some sort of mechanism. We will certainly look into that as well.
I agree. I mean, it's unfortunate, when you do get communities where there's issues like these do come up, and I'm sure that we'll do due diligence on this and make sure that there's something put into place that can circumvent that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cardenas is next, and then Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. I'd like to ask both of you if you could please briefly describe what you see your role is in this context. We've heard a lot of people who are members of neighborhood councils in the city complain about this commission, complain about departments, complain about this council, that we're not letting them be what they need to be, or we're not letting them be what they were supposed to be. Can you please describe in that context what you think the neighborhood councils are supposed to be? Let me ask you this specific question. Are neighborhood councils there so that they could run the city, or are neighborhood councils there so that they could share their views, their opinions, how they feel about their neighborhoods?
I think it's the latter. It's not about running the city, but enhancing the ability for residents of Los Angeles to have a voice, to play a role in terms of advising of some sort.
I agree also. I think neighborhood councils are the platform for constituents to be able to voice their opinion, and as a community they should work together to really come to a consensus of what the real issues are, and work with the council office and Dunn and the chamber, so we can come to a solution. But I think overall neighborhood councils are the voice for that citizen that they didn't have in the past.
Okay. It's my understanding that under charter reform, the neighborhood councils came into being, and therefore the charter does explain what their role is, what their responsibilities are if a community chooses to have a neighborhood council. That being the case, what is your board that we're talking about you joining? What is your board's role in that?
We would be helping to certify the formation of the neighborhood councils. I believe that's our role in terms of also ensuring that the neighborhood councils fulfill the original charter in terms of their role and purpose. I recognize that the neighborhood councils are 5 years old, which means that it's still pretty young. We were here in 1999. I was active in 1998 during the elections in terms of supporting the charter and the formation of neighborhood councils. We thought it was an important new addition to the structure of, I guess, city government. And so I think it's still pretty young. And there's a lot of challenges ahead, but we're very optimistic because we think that there's also been a lot of successes with the neighborhood councils itself.
I think the role of the board should be to look at all the facts across the board, set the policy, and make sure the policy is being run correctly. I mean, I think that's really, we've been given a few suggestions by the fellow council members here about different issues that I know that we're going to have to go back and look into and make sure that, again, we do due diligence on, so that we can make sure that we give an informed decision.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that feedback, and I'd like to make a statement myself, where I think it's important that the board that you're going to be joining after this vote, that board is important, and I think it's important that the board remind the neighborhood councils, please feel free to do what you want to do for your neighborhood. Please feel free to be that voice, to encourage your neighbors to be part of that voice, etc. But I'll give you an example of something that I didn't appreciate that some neighborhood councils apparently tried to express in their bylaws. For example, they took stakeholder to mean something along these lines, that if you're not a U.S. citizen, you're not a stakeholder in a neighborhood. And I take exception to that, because my father, who came from another country, who was a legal resident here for 40-some years, would have been excluded, or actually close to 50 years, would have been, by the time he passed away, would have been excluded from being a part of a neighborhood council. He was a homeowner. He was a hardworking man. He had a business. He raised 11 children responsibly, never caused a burden on the police force or anybody in the neighborhood, and yet he would have been excluded. It's that kind of reminder that I think that all of us need to be reminded. When you look at the Constitution, when you look at the Charter, when you look at responsibility, when you look at what it is to be an American, to discriminate against somebody and try to exclude them is not what our Charter is about. So I think it's important that this board be as diligent as I know all of you are going to be, and I just wanted to say that I think this board is appropriate, and I look forward to your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Ms. Han.
Thank you, Mr. President, and congratulations to both of you for agreeing to serve on one of the commissions that I think is really critical to the future of Los Angeles. Daniel, I know your boss, Adlai.
Right.
We served together as investment bankers back in the early 90s, and I love your organization. I think you do just a great work, great work. I think you'll bring a lot of interesting perspective to Bonk. And I appreciate your willingness to try to get nonprofits involved with neighborhood councils, but I do want to sort of make my usual speech about, the real purpose for neighborhood councils was to get more people involved in the process of government, and for them to have an opportunity to weigh in on the decisions that are made not only in this chamber, but in many of our committee meetings and many of the boards that meet around the city of Los Angeles. So I really urge you to really work on, as you said, getting them more involved in the community impact statement. I loved hearing you say that. I think that was really important. Let me just ask one question, and then I have a couple other things to say. What has been both of your involvement so far with a neighborhood council?
I think for myself, it's more been involved. As I said earlier, in 98, 99, I was very involved in terms of ensuring that Korean American voters understood what neighborhood councils were as a concept during the election. And since then, I think my involvement more has been watching local neighborhood councils in my area. I work in the Koreatown area, and I live in Highland Park. So I think this will be an opportunity to take what I know about individual neighborhood councils and understand more broadly in terms of how the neighborhood councils are operating around the city itself.
In my former agency that I used to work for, I dealt a lot with the neighborhood councils in terms of with quality of life issues, graffiti, bulky item removal, tree planting, stuff like that. So I've had the experience. I know the board members currently for like the Pacoima Neighborhood Council, which is the one where I work at, and spend most of my time at, and I sit with them on different boards. I know a lot of the issues that are going on in the community. My mother lives there, so I have an idea of what's going on. But so that's really been my experience. It's been more of a perimeter experience, but I definitely know what the issues are in the community.
Thank you, which is interesting because you'll probably bring an interesting perspective and as opposed to someone who's, kind of really been actively day-to-day in a neighborhood council. I think neighborhood councils are at a critical point in the city of Los Angeles, and I think the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners up to this point really focused on certifying these, 87-some neighborhood councils, and it was a lot of work making sure we certified them, making sure their outreach was appropriate. But I really want to see Bonk be who you're intended to be in the city charter, and that is a policy-setting commission. I've been a little disappointed, particularly when I was chair of Education and Neighborhoods, and we heard the complaints from neighborhood councils, whether it was elections or outreach or involvement or filling out the Form 700 or bureaucracy and red tape in the city hall. I want to see Bonk set policy for neighborhood councils, and I think it's a good time for you because the 912 Commission is now looking at overall, how have neighborhood councils been doing? What's the interaction been with City Hall? How can we make them be who they're supposed to be? But as far as I can remember, Bonk really never came forward with one policy idea on how to make neighborhood councils better. And I think that's your role. And I think there's been a strange relationship between the commission and the department. And the department is the day-to-day, management of neighborhood councils, but the commission is the overall group of citizens who really look at this and bring to the city council, bring to education and neighborhoods ideas and policy concepts that really will move neighborhood councils into the future and where they're being. I will say on the record, as my council member Rosendahl said, I'm in favor of having neighborhood councils be allowed to open council files. I think that's the next step. Neighborhood councils are about getting involved in the legislative process of government, and I don't think anything would be better. I'm not afraid of that. I don't think that would clog the city clerk's office. I think that's the next step for neighborhood council. So I congratulate you. I just wanted to take that opportunity to get on my soapbox and tell you that I think your jobs are critical, and I hope you really look at them as being the policy-setting body for getting Angelenos involved in government. What could be more noble?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. That is our last speaker. If nobody else wishes to be heard, let's open the roll on the nominations, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Congratulations, commissioners, and thank you for putting yourselves forward.
Thank you.
We'll take up our final commissioner for the day, number 46 next. You can ask our commission nominee to come forward on item number 46, please. And I'll recognize Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. John Mavar, come on down. Colleagues, I was in the unfortunate situation of having to replace my first appointee to the 912 Commission. She had, unfortunately, some health issues which required her to resign. So my next thought was someone who I think brings an interesting perspective to the 912 Commission. John Mavar was honorary mayor of San Pedro. John also was sort of the field deputy for my brother when he first became mayor, and actually was one of the people on the ground for the mayor's office with the newly forming neighborhood councils in the harbor area. But he's also been involved in one of the neighborhood councils in San Pedro, actually was elected to one of the boards, and he brings a labor perspective. John is a member of ILWU Local 13 and works on the docks, and that was one of the issues in the harbor area. Was sometimes the union members felt like neighborhood councils weren't exactly looking at all the issues involved with the Port of Los Angeles and mainly only focusing on the negative impact. So I think John brings an interesting perspective to this commission, and that's why he's my next choice. And John, I'm just going to give you a second to maybe say why you're looking forward to this, and maybe just from your perspective, what are the issues that you're hoping this 912 Commission will look at in terms of really making our neighborhood councils better in the future?
Well, thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you, Council. I feel that the early notification system is very, very important for our district as well, and throughout the city. I think we get a lot of these new developments that pop up and we're unaware. And of course, the labor side of it. Labor is very important to me, and I feel that labor unions also throughout the whole city should participate in the neighborhood council system, and the elections, of course.
How do you think we're doing in terms of outreach? How are neighborhood councils doing in terms of really getting all stakeholders involved in the neighborhood?
Well, that's always a challenge because everybody's busy off taking their kids to soccer practice or church or school. So it's always a challenge to figure out how to outreach more to the church, holding meetings in possible different locations. but also making it much more accessible for the community to attend. That's the ultimate goal.
Well, again, I think you're going to be a perfect member of this 912 Commission. John, it is a historic moment in the city of Los Angeles. This 912 Commission was ordained in our city charter, that we did take a look at this brand new movement in Los Angeles called Neighborhood Councils. And one of the things I'm going to count on you to do is, I know you're the kind of person that has a ton of friends, and your email list is, you know, unmatched. And I hope you will continue to communicate with people who maybe are not in neighborhood councils, or people who have dropped out of neighborhood councils, and ask them their opinions on the issues that you will be tackling on this 912 Commission, so that truly it's not just John Mavar sitting there, but it's John Mavar representing the entire harbor area and the entire 15th district.
I look forward to meeting with each neighborhood council in the district. So.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. If there's nobody else wishing to be heard, let's open the roll on the nomination.
I believe there's a...
Oh, there is one card for public comment. My mistake. I'd like to call forward Jim McQuiston. Public comment was waived in committee, so Jim McQuiston will be our speaker on this nomination.
Jim McQuiston, East Hollywood Community Association. Much as I would probably support John for this commission, I must point out that the mayor is supposed to make all of the nominations. I would suggest that Ms. Hahn ask the mayor to make the nomination and proceed in accordance with the charter requirements, and thus forestall any kind of legal problems later on. The commission, as it has been formulated, has that problem, and we will be discussing that with the mayor pretty quickly. We hope that the mayor is going to make the nominations and resolve the problem without any further ado.
Mr. City Attorney, on a point of information.
Yes, Mr. President. The City Council does have appointing authority for 15 of the members of the 912 Commission.
Right, without mayoral oversight, so thank you for that statement of fact. All right, I'd like to open the roll on this nomination, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That commissioner is approved. Congratulations. I'd like to recognize Mr. Parks now for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate being taken out of order. Let me ask Ms. Clark to come up, and also Detective Chavez. Colleagues, we have today a $50,000 reward on a homicide that happened in 77, and LAPD 77 Division has advised us that they've run out of leads, and it's a very unfortunate incident.
Mr. Parks,
involving...
I'm sorry, I've been informed we actually have to have the findings first. That was my mistake. So why don't we do the findings? Excuse me. Mr. City Attorney, on the findings.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll recite the facts as presented to me by the maker of the motion for the Council's consideration of the adequacy of the findings. Since the posting of today's agenda, the Los Angeles Police Department has requested that the City Council offer a reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the suspect who murdered Marvin Powell on February 5th, 2006 at West 48th and Budlong. Immediate action is required because the suspect remains a danger to the community and leads have dried up. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Okay. You can please open the roll on the findings, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
My apologies, Mr. Parks.
No, thank you very much. But I'd like to ask Mrs. Clark, the mother of Marvin Powell, to make some comments and a plea to the public for support, and then ask Detective Chavez to come up and give the particulars of the case and also the callback number.
I'm asking the public to come out and help me find who killed my son. Oh, okay. Like I said, I'm asking the public to come out and help me find out who killed my son. You guys, kids. It's hard for me to do this. He didn't deserve this. And I know somebody know who did it. I'm asking you, please come out and help me find a person who's behind this. That's all I can say right now.
Thank you. Detective Chavez.
Good morning, council members. My name is Detective Joe Chavez. I'm 77th Homicide.
On February 5th, 2006, the victim, Marvin Powell, was riding his bicycle in the area of 48th and Budlong. He was approached by a small four-door red vehicle, which fired one shot at the victim. The victim was struck and succumbed to his injuries at the scene. To this day, we have run out of leads, and we are requesting the help of the community in solving this case.
Pastor, do you have a comment to make?
I am the pastor of this family. This has really torn the family up as well as the community. We would really appreciate the support so that we might fan out into the community to see if we can get additional information to help the police department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did we give the callback number?
Yes, I'm sorry. The callback number is going to be 213-485-1385, or any police station will direct you to the We Tip line, and they could contact me through there.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I'd ask for an aye vote on $50,000 reward. We certainly would like to bring this case to a conclusion. Unfortunately, between the 8th and 9th, I think we switch back and forth as leading the city in violence and homicides, and this family certainly deserves to have closure to this case.
Mr. Cardenas?
Sorry for your loss, ma'am, and your family's loss, but officer, could you please repeat again what day and what time? I may have not have heard what time of day. I didn't get whether it was nighttime or daytime. Could you describe that again for the people watching so that if they can understand what this $50,000 reward is about?
Yes, Councilman. This crime occurred on February 5th, 2006, approximately 2 o'clock in the morning. It was dark, and the victim was by himself on his bicycle riding eastbound in the area of 48th and Budlong when a small red vehicle approached him. A shot was fired from the vehicle, and the victim was hit, and he succumbed to his injuries at scene.
Thank you very much, officer.
Colleagues, just one anecdote. If I'm not mistaken, that's no more than 4 or 5 blocks from the police station, from Southwest. Is it?
District of Arts 77.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard on this? If not, let's open the roll on the reward motion, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved, and we'll send that forthwith. And again, thank you to the family for being here, taking time out of your day, and we're very deeply sorry for your loss. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 1, and that was call special for cards from the public. And this is a protest hearing, and the ballot tabulation and announcement will be tomorrow.
Okay. We have 2 speaker cards, Bonnie Bursk and Matt Dowd.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Bonnie Bursk. I'm the president of the Granada Hills Improvement Association and active in the Granada Hills Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to thank you for considering and making a motion on this. We consider the bid districts to be extremely important to the improvement and beautification of Los Angeles. Our bid district has made great progress in the area, and we believe that we're bringing new business uses into the street. And we just wanted to thank all of you, and also we want to thank Greg Smith, our local council member, for considering and all the action that's being done on the business improvement districts, and we hope that you approve ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bursk. Matt Dowd is our next speaker.
Thank you very much. This is item number 1. I just wanted to point out something here I thought was interesting, that the establishment of this business improvement district is it's established pursuant to Article 8D of the California Constitution. So it's interesting that we take notice of the California Constitution here, but we don't take notice of it on loads of other occasions, including Proposition R. Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. I just urge council support. This is a very good bid. It's very well supported in the community. Struggled for a little bit for a while there, but got on track and is doing very good things in the Granada Hills community, so I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. If nobody else wishes to be heard, let's open the roll on this.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. President, there's no action required,
this is
or
just
no
for
vote
opening the
required
hearing.
today. This is just the hearing, and the
Great.
vote will be actually tomorrow.
We will continue that over, carry that over then. Next item, please.
Item number 2 is also called special for cards from the public, and this is also Arts District property and BID, and this is the same situation, hearing today, and the ballot tabulation will be tomorrow.
Okay, we will have our public hearing here. We have 22 different cards on this, and we will not be able to get to all of them unless there is a motion to extend beyond the 10 minutes, so we'll go 5 minutes each side to begin, and in order to get as many speakers as possible, we'll set the clock at 1 minute. I'll start with the for side, and then we'll hear from the against side. Charlie Wu is our first speaker, and then Peklar Pilavjian is next, and Kim Benjamin. We'll take those 3 from the for side to begin.
Good morning, Charlie Wu, 905 East 2nd Street. As a stakeholder of the Arts District, I come before you to urge support for the formation of the business district in the Arts District. The Arts District is in transition, it's in a critical phase. I think it's about time that it joins the rest of the downtown districts to form the BIDs. And I know that many of my friends on the other side have different ideas, but I think we share the common goal. I think it's important that BID provide the resources, the structure, so that different people with different ideas can come together and work together for the benefit of the district. So I hope you will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
My name is Doug Hinchliff. I'm the chairman of the Central City East Association, and speaking on behalf of the Central City East Association. The Central City East Association has deep roots in the proposed bid area. Contrary to what you may hear from some of the people opposing this, it goes back a long time. Some of us own property, some of us have known people in the area, some of us have done business in the area, and we believe that what is being proposed, because it has come from the people who live in the area and have asked us to represent them in the formation of this bid, is an important step. We support it. The majority of the landowners, we believe, and people in the area support it, and we look forward to your support. I would add that you received a letter from a friend of mine who also supports it, who's not able to be here because he had an important meeting with his oncologist, Joe Bloom, but he also supports it. Thank you.
Thank you. Peklar, please.
Good morning. My name is Peklar Pilavjian. I represent 4th and Alameda LLC. I am also the chair of the Downtown Center Business Improvement District as my capacity as a representative of the St. Vincent Jewelry Center. As chair of the Downtown Center bid, I have seen the tremendous benefits of a BID, and today I cannot imagine the Downtown Center without a BID. And that goes true for the Fashion District, the Historic Core, and I think the Arts District is no different. I urge you to support it. It is a great thing. It cleans the neighborhood. It is a wonderful for the residences and the businesses, and I hope you can support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kim Benjamin.
Good morning. Kim Benjamin. I'm a stakeholder in the proposed BID community. I've already submitted my initial ballot to precipitate this discussion today in support. I'm also standing here as the current president of one of the BIDs already in place in Los Angeles. That's the Chinatown Business Improvement District here in downtown as its co-founder. I also stand here in support of this proposed project, having seen firsthand the kind of good work within a community that a business improvement district can do to galvanize a community, bring it together, leverage our resources. In our first 2 years, with the help of the council office, we were able to turn $250,000 of outside funds that this council at that time provided us into $1.5 million of grant money and projects within our community. Those kinds of things can be seen, they're tangible, they're as simple as streetlights, additional security, an MTA call to get an Angel's Walk. These are the kinds of things that help build a community, that bring a community and resonate within it. So I'd like to suggest that you have heard support before. I add my support for it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker from the for side, Aziz Zahine.
Good morning, folks, and thanks for being here today and every day that you are serving the people of Los Angeles. I'm Ziza Jean. I own a studio in the Artists District, Bastet Movement Arts, which has been operating since 2001, a struggling little arts business that is not being served by the Arts and Business Association that says they are against the bid. Quite a few of my neighbors, both in 215 South Santa Fe, where I own one of the first condo lofts in the city that has had all of its own problems and difficulties, and a lot of my neighbors all over the Artist District have spoken to me and seem to be extremely confused about the bid. There has been a huge amount of information put around about this bid, and really, all of you are here because you know how many individuals depend on other people who are leaders to do the homework and do the research. I would posit that we do not really know enough about this
If I can ask you to
bid.
conclude, please. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. From the other side, the against side, we will now turn to first speakers. Jonathan Gerald will be first. He'll be followed by Claude Kent and Nancy Kent.
Mr. President, honorable council members, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jonathan Gerald. I'm a 10-year resident of the Arts District, a member of the board of two community nonprofits, La Raba and LA Dad. I respectfully request you vote no to the Arts District Business Improvement District proposed by the Central East Association for the following reasons. The Arts District is becoming a residential community, and bids are inappropriate in communities in which there is a significant residential population. Residents and other stakeholders who are not property owners are excluded from voting for this bid, which is created and run by the single stakeholder group of property owners. Residents and other stakeholders often have agendas that are at odds with property owners. The creation of this bid would invest one stakeholder group with enhanced power to influence city policy with regard to zoning and other issues, and unfairly diminish the voices of residents and other stakeholders by excluding them from forums to which bids are not invited. This is unfair and undemocratic. The proposed bid, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Claude Kent is next, and then Nancy Kent.
My name is Claude Kent. I lived and my business has been in the Artist District for 25 years. I own 4 pieces of property in the proposed bid area, and I am an active community member, serving the last 7 years as a CPAB member and 10 years on the board of La Raba, a community organization that represents local artists and business. I am here to talk about the way in which the bid has been designed. To start, at no time was I aware of any group trying to form a bid in our area until a meeting at Young Market spring of 2005. By this time, the bid was already a finished plan, put together by professional outsiders. They solicited no input from the residents or business community, except for a few large commercial properties already associated with other CCEA bids. As drawn, over 20% of the Arts District properties are owned by the City of Los Angeles or other public agencies. These properties will be voting yes as per policy. I must put the question to all of you. Did this policy intend to give the public property the power to control the destiny of a given area, or was it intended to support private property owners in developing the area according to their vision? Because of the huge percentage of public properties.
If I can ask you to conclude, your time is up, I'm sorry. Nancy Kent, and then Blaine White will be the next speaker after that.
Yes, hello. My name is Nancy Kent, and I'm also a 25-year resident and property owner. I'm against the bid for many reasons, but mainly because Central City East did not follow proper established guidelines to gather information to determine what property owners and residents need from the bid. They designed the bid with almost no input from the community they intended to serve. There was no community outreach during the formation of the bid. They held 3 public meetings in February and March of 2005, and I only received notice of the March 9th meeting at Young's Market. CCE presented the bid with its budget. They didn't give the community an opportunity to let them know what we wanted and needed for our bid. According to district formation activity guidelines, the initial process of formulating a bid is to go to the community to find out what they need via focus groups, questionnaires, telephone surveys, and community information meetings. This bid was brought to us as a done deal. CCEA and their board is completely out of touch with our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next 2 speakers, Blaine White, followed by Douglas Ehrenberg.
Good morning. I'm Blaine White. I'm representing A American Self-Storage on Avery Street in the Artist District. We strongly oppose a bid program as we've had little or no problems with graffiti, trash, or security, we would have to pass on the costs to our tenants, many of whom are homeless or low income. I personally lived at this property for over a year and had no issues whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I now live in Santa Monica, and I've had more problems there than I did downtown. Thank you.
Douglas?
Good morning. My name is Douglas Ehrenberg. I am a property owner, actually the managing partner of Palmetto Properties, located at the corner of Palmetto and Mateo Streets, consisting of approximately 4.5 acres, 150,000 square feet of buildings. This property has been in my family close to 50 years. Our proposed bid assessment is $20,915.21. My concern is this bid is not reflecting the true pulse of the district and its property owners. Second is that the boundaries, the ability of certain sections to be opted out. How does this work? 3 is credibility and sincerity of the organizers. And looking at the assessments, it appears that I am the single largest individual parcel assessment. You would think that someone might have contacted me for my support, but never. Our property is located directly across the street from 2 core developments, and you would think they might have contacted me since they are in the organizing committee, and perhaps I too might have been able to opt out. Part of the pro-bid brochure states that generally the larger the building, the greater the site's capacity for use. The larger the use, the greater the benefit. You would think that I would be some relevance. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the time allocated by the president who was chairing the meeting just a minute ago. I'd like to read the following names into the record and then ask Ms. Perry to speak. Those that were in favor, we had Kate Bortolo, Jeffrey Rouse. A couple that we were unsure of their position, Ed Fuentes, Frank Novak, Fred Rollins, Linda Modagam, and those opposed, Daniel Kotzer, Lynn Lakich, Sheila Rollins, Paul Solomon, Steve Allwright, Francis Hashimoto, and M. Oberhofer. We'll read those into the record. Ms. Perry. Ms. Perry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I believe I just wanted to clarify the vote has been taken, and we are waiting the results of the votes, and today is a protest hearing, which means that people put their viewpoints on the record, and I believe no action is to be taken today. Am I correct?
That's correct.
That is my
Ballot
understanding.
tomorrow.
Okay,
So the individuals who were not able to speak under the timeline, those will be recorded in their opposition or in favor of. Is that correct, Ms. Perry?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and that closed. Unless, again, unless there is an extended request to extend the public hearing, we've had the public hearing, the 5 minutes on both sides as required. So if someone...
Like revoking a CUP almost. I refuse. I would be willing to extend it, 5 more minutes?
Okay. 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 Ms. Perry has made the motion. It's required motion.
Motion made at 5 more minutes.
Mr. Reyes will second that. 5 more minutes on that. Thank you, Ms. Perry. Okay. We'll go back to the cards we had listed here. We'll take one from each side. Kate Bortolo, followed by Daniel Kotzer, or if I could, for those that are here in opposition, I think that opposition over here, if you have individuals you'd like to speak, since it'll be 5 minutes, and want them in order, otherwise I will call them as the names I've listed here for the 5 minutes.
My name is Kate Bartolo. I am with the Core Group. I'm here in support of the Artist District BID for this reason. It is a neighborhood building organization. I believe it's going to unite what is previously and is currently a diverse group of stakeholders in meaningful ways. In my experience, the most effective way to start neighborhood building, and it is a long process, is with public safety. While other areas of downtown have greater crime problems, I can tell you that recently an area that we have has become a haven for drug dealers and prostitutes. This group offers organizational efficiencies, operational efficiencies, and I really want to take my hat off to Estella Lopez and Tara Devine. Under Estella's leadership, I think that this district is going to have the political voice that it could and should have and is deserved to have for a long time.
Thank you. Our next speaker, unless you have individuals, because again, we will have 4 minutes. Daniel Kotzer. He had to leave. Lily Lakich. Okay, come on up and just give your name, please.
Hi, Jan. How is everybody?
I'm sorry, your name?
Ed Fuentes is my name on the card, and I just want to, as a community artist who looked out the window and interprets community, I saw a mess. The mess is this bid. I would have to really want to emphasize that many of us do not oppose the bid. We just sort of oppose how this bid has sort of taken apart the community, as you can see by the opposition that includes artists, residents, and developers. Many of the developers who are pro the bid I've met maybe only briefly, some I never heard of, and I don't think many of them live in the region. But I hope that all of this is taken into consideration, and as I support an opposition of this particular bid, not of bids, but of this particular bid and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Lily Lakich. Oh, Francis is going to come in? Okay.
Honorable council members, thank you for extending the time. I too have 3 buildings in the Arts District. It comprises 60,000 square feet of land, and yet I have never received a notice, just by word of mouth that some meeting was happening. As before, you talked about the importance of a neighborhood to have communication for any program. Well, I'd like to say that if this program, the way it's been presented, a plan has been made, and yet so many people have not heard from the organizers about what's going to happen, unless this is what happens is we get a meeting notice, it has that a hearing will take place, then a meeting notice is sent out that it will not take place, and then it's the final meeting. I implore you that you have to look at what's on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeffrey Rouse from the other side, before we go to Lily. Jeffrey Rouse.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Rouse. I'm a property owner in the Arts District. I'm also the treasurer of the Hollywood Entertainment District, Business Improvement District. I own property in Hollywood. I was a founding member of that Business Improvement District, and it has made a tremendous difference in the cleanliness and the safety of Hollywood, and I would hope that the Arts District Business Improvement District could also have an effect on the area of the Arts District in helping with some of the issues of cleanliness and crime. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. We will have two more speakers.
Thank you, Council, for allowing me to speak before you. I am Lily Lockage. I have owned my property, a 5,000 square foot building at 704 Traction Avenue for 26 years. I created the Museum of Neon Art inside my studio in 1981. I oppose this bid strongly for a number of reasons. It follows the CCEA's program of ruining a community, the Toy District. The Toy District used to be a great place to walk around. It is now filled with trash constantly. Their sweepers sweep trash into the storm drains. They sweep up around homeless people smoking crack, as in the photos I took on just one morning in 1 hour. It's not like I went and waited for things to happen. Additionally, the CCEA has employed extortion tactics to get the yes bid votes that they have. They have gone to property owners, cutting deals. They have gone to them, telling them that they could not get building permits unless they voted yes for the bid. I ask you, please vote no, and please investigate the practices of the CCEA.
Thank you. Our last speaker, Sheila Rollins, is our last speaker.
Good morning. Nice to see you, Jan. I think the feeling in the Arts District is that the bid is being shoved down our throats. Artists and residents who have actually been there for 20 years or more, like myself, don't see the need for it and don't want it under the terms under which it's being offered. And the members of the community are what is missing here. And whether or not the bid will work without the support of the arts community is highly dubious, artists being known for their unwillingness to cooperate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've closed, sorry, that was it. We didn't have a card from you, so that closes public comment period. What I would like to do is the city clerk to come up just for a minute to explain the process that will be happening after today's meeting, just so there's clarification, or clarity, I guess.
Karen Kalfian with the City Clerk's office. This is Holly Walcott with our office as well. After the close of the public hearing today, this is a Proposition 218 ballot. So any ballot for or against that's received by the close of the public hearing today will be included in the tabulation that we'll present to the council tomorrow. At the close of the hearing today, we'll tabulate the ballots and we'll have those results. And then tomorrow, the council will have the opportunity to vote for the item. If it's a no vote, that's it. If it's a yes vote through the ballot, the council still has the discretion to approve or not. And that's the main procedure for this type of a ballot.
Thank you. Seeing no one else on the queue, this item then will be held over until tomorrow and the public hearing closed. Thank you all for coming here today, and this item will be back tomorrow. Also on item number 1 as well. Thank you very much. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item, Madam President, is item number 24, and that was called special by Councilmember Padilla.
Councilmember Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we can have staff come forward on this item to answer a few questions. I apologize for the delay, colleagues. I was over with the chair of the Housing, Community and Economic Development Committee. Please. I just want to start off, if you can give us a brief summary of the item. If I'm not mistaken, this deals with the condo conversion issue, which was very sort of high profile before we went on a recess before Labor Day.
Good morning. My name is Judith Reel. I'm a deputy city attorney. This doesn't actually address the condo conversion issue. This is a motion that directed us to incorporate the tenant protection provisions authorized by the Ellis Act, and we incorporated them into the rent stabilization ordinance. So it only applies to units that are rent stabilized, and it offers numerous protections to tenants who are evicted pursuant to the Ellis Act. Whenever a landlord desires to go out of the rental housing business, that's a lawful grounds for eviction. Okay. And this provides protections to tenants who are evicted where the landlord later desires to re-enter the rental housing market. So it really wouldn't apply to condo conversions.
Okay. Well, explain it to me in layman's terms, please.
Sure.
Because
yes.
when I read the summary, there's those magic words, removing units from the rental housing market. So
Correct.
That's the big red flags for me and for the public.
The Ellis Act allows landlords, says to the cities, you have to allow landlords to go out of the rental housing market. You have to allow landlords to withdraw units from the rental housing market. And the Ellis Act also says, however, cities, although you have to let landlords go out of business, you can enact the following protections for tenants. And that's what this does. And I can summarize what those protections are.
Please do.
If a landlord, again, this applies to landlords who have withdrawn units from the rental housing market. If they want to go back into the rental housing market, then they have to notify the department of their intent to re-rent 30 days before offering the unit for re-rental. If a landlord withdraws units from the rental housing market and later re-rents them within a 2-year period, the tenant who is evicted can sue for actual damages and punitive damages, and the city can sue for punitive damages. If a landlord who has permanently withdrawn rental units from the rental housing market re-rents them within 5 years, that they are limited to the former rent plus the cost of living adjustments that would have been allowed under the rent stabilization ordinance. So they can't re-rent at market rates. if they offer for rent those units within 2 years of withdrawal, and the tenant gave notice that they wanted to re-rent those units, then they have to offer those units to the tenant that was evicted. If they re-rent them within a 5-year period, a tenant who is evicted can request to re-rent that unit. This also eliminates partial Ellising. The rent stabilization ordinance has been interpreted to allow landlords up until now to withdraw a unit at a time. The Ellis Act says that this is not intended to allow landlords to withdraw a unit at a time, and it says it's intended to allow landlords to withdraw all of the units. And so this says that now if you're going to exercise your rights under the Ellis Act, you're going to have to withdraw all of the units in a building and not target, say, specific units or specific tenants. And lastly, it'll be applicable on a going forward basis, and there's an urgency clause so that it would be effective upon publication.
So the protections are in for illegal evictions or having utilized this in the past as a way to evict.
Yeah, it's really intended to say to landlords, if you're going to exercise your rights under the Ellis Act, you better be going out of the rental housing market. And if you're not, we're going to put provisions in place that protect tenants.
So and you lost me there between the 2-year and the 5-year. It's not just the first right, basically, of refusal for the previous tenant to come back into that unit?
Yes.
But also the escalation of the rents?
Yes, it controls the amount of rent that you can bring a unit back on for, and it gives tenants rights to come back into that unit if it's placed on the market within 5 years.
Okay. And say I'm a tenant, the building I'm living in is impacted.
Yes.
Where do I turn to for help or for questions? Is it a city jurisdiction, a state jurisdiction? Is there
No, it
a
would be
phone
the
number to call?
Los Angeles Housing Department, because this is now going to be part of the rent stabilization ordinance, and they have the authority and the mechanism to investigate violations. It's also an affirmative defense to an eviction action. So there's a number of remedies available to a tenant, but they can turn to the housing department for advice.
So the city's then responsible for the compliance.
The city shares responsibility. The city will have responsibility for compliance, but the tenant will also have their own rights.
Right, but a lot of tenants don't always know all of their rights.
I understand, yes.
So the city's where they turn to for help.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. I was listening very intently because the first time we met was over Lincoln Place.
Yes, it was.
And here we are with 37 families left, and they're going to be thrown out. They all got their unlawful detainer on the 1st of September, and they're very worried about their future. Help me out on this historically. AMCO is the biggest apartment owner in America. They have 1 million tenants. They buy into an existing property and then announce that they're getting out of the rental business.
Mm-hmm.
That starts the process of the Ellis Act moving forward, correct?
Correct.
All the process that this great city went through with a tentative tract map and conditions. The conditions listed all kinds of things that gave certain rights to tenants. But since they didn't file that tentative tract map, that has no role in it, right?
With all due respect, I can't speak to that. I advise the housing department. What this pertains to are evictions of persons from rent-stabilized units. And the rights that accrue to someone, if there are any, by virtue of a tentative tract map, unfortunately, another city attorney is going to have to advise on that, and there still may be, with respect to Lincoln Place, ongoing litigation. There was recently litigation, and I believe they have appealed from that.
Right.
So I would be reluctant to discuss the facts of that particular case in open session.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I also have a whole string of buildings where the people are being evicted on Grandview. These are smaller complexes. That's why I put in this moratorium on condo conversions.
Understood.
And we'll continue that dialogue among ourselves here. Could you just give us a quick thumbnail sketch of what this ordinance does?
This ordinance protects tenants who are evicted when a landlord says, I'm going out of the rental housing market, but in fact, they don't go out of the rental housing market. And this protects those tenants. It gives them rights. It gives them the ability to seek redress against landlords who in fact, are not going out of the rental housing business.
And I appreciate our leadership in the city here for putting this ordinance together. Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Colleagues, there were some public speaker cards. This has had a public hearing. Unless someone asks there to be a public hearing, the public hearing has been deemed closed. This item is now before us, and just want to say thank you, Judy, for all of your help on this and really coming up with some ideas on how we can protect tenants here in Los Angeles. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
15 ayes.
Next item, please.
Next item, Madam President, is item number 27, and that was called special by Councilmember Padilla.
Mr. Padilla.
Thank you. If we can have staff come forward on this item as well. And again, colleagues, I think during the recess there was a flurry of activity in the state capitol, the state legislature. One of the landmark pieces of legislation that was a product of this session is a bill that would put California once again on the forefront of limiting greenhouse gases in the future. But this particular item before us has to deal with California public-owned electric utilities, principles addressing greenhouse gas reduction goals. Can we get just a summary of what this item is and how it relates to the greenhouse gas limitation legislation that was approved this year?
My name is Mark Zalachek from DWP Environmental Services. In recognition of emerging climate change issues, LADWP, along with Sacramento Municipal Utility District, earlier this year took the lead on working with other municipal utilities on addressing greenhouse gas emissions. And as a result, the California Municipal Utilities Association adopted these principles on June 6th of this year. What is before you is the adoption of these principles. And these principles have a number of elements. Thank you, Wendy. These principles have a number of elements that are consistent with AB 32. Essentially, if AB 32 is adopted or approved, our principles would be consistent with that, and we would go in implementing the state program.
Can you tell us what those principles are and maybe how it relates to the Department of Water and Power?
Yes, the first principle is, primary one is development of a greenhouse gas reduction program that would be consistent with whatever state goals are developed. And currently the goals would be that the state would meet 1990 levels by 2020. And DWP is in the process of going back and reviewing the forecast to make sure that can be done. We know right now at this point we can meet 2012 emission levels 5% below what they were in 1990. So and the other element is consideration of environmental justice issues, which is a part of Assembly Bill 32. And another major part is supporting standard hours, mandatory greenhouse gas reporting, which we're currently doing on a voluntary basis. We're a member of the Climate Registry. We're a charter member, and we've had 5 years certified from 2000 through 2004. So those are the major elements that are being developed right now. One of the questions that will be developed as time goes on is, will it be a market-based program, or how will the emission limits be developed? And their resources board will be the agency responsible for developing that.
So what specifically does this mean for LADWP?
Well, we don't know exactly, but we know based on the efforts with the renewable energy program and the repowerings that we're doing that we are confident by 2012 we can be at least 5% below 1990 levels. The question is, for the next 8 years, we need to go back and look at our forecast and determine if we can meet those levels. But as the regulations develop, we'll have a better handle on it.
Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but what I think it means is now we have to come up with a plan to meet these new goals, and that's not an insignificant task for the department or for the commission itself. Now, how does this relate or interrelate with the RPS that we have?
Well, it's actually, and this came up at the board meeting too, it will be related with the RPS and the Integrated Resource Plan, which is coming up for adoption in October to our board. And this, we won't be able to have this by that time period, but it will be integrated into it. So it will be a item going back to the board presenting how do we meet those numbers and what programs do we look at in terms of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and new repowering projects.
So what's the time frame that we can anticipate a plan for council's review for how DWP is going to ensure compliance in the relevant time frames?
probably within 120 days, I would recommend. Part of it will go back and looking at how AB 32 is actually implemented, but 90 to 120 days.
Okay. And Mr. Karsh, anything further?
I have nothing to add other than to reiterate the position that the council took to support and seek amendments to AB 32.
And those amendments were adopted?
Those amendments are to use the actual 1990 emissions baseline as our emissions limit and to include DWP as a member in the advisory committee. That advisory committee has not been formed yet. We hope that we would get named to that. And there was also a position to include landfill emissions in the language of the bill. That was not accomplished. As to the use of the actual 1990 emissions baseline,
It is not included in the statute, but when the regulations are developed, that will be where their resources board will go back and look at those numbers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. That item is now before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
15 ayes.
That item's been approved. Next item.
Item number 37, called special by Councilmember Parks.
Mr. Parks. And there are cards on this item, so if anyone would like to ask that the public hearing be reopened, council members can do that, but otherwise there would not be a public hearing. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. May I have the CAO and the CLA at the table, please? Colleagues, this item was continued from before recess, just so that we could make sure that everything is done right on this RFP, mainly because I guess we've been working on this for about 3 years. And I want to just ask Jerry, we asked you specifically to look at the RFP, see if it covered the issues that were relevant so that when it goes out, we've covered all the bases.
Yes, we have looked at the RFP. It's actually quite comprehensive. It does include all of the issues. There are a couple of minor tweaks that I've spoken with Housing about that I think are implicit in the scope of services on the RFP, but we just want to be very clear, for example, that the contractor is going to have to do a wide-ranging survey of both tenants and landlords, et cetera. But yeah, it's an extensive scope of services on the RFP, and we are satisfied with it.
Okay. Let me ask just a couple of specific questions. And I understand that there was an issue, or at least we'll get it resolved in Housing Committee dealing with the funding. It's not a matter that there's no funding, it's a matter of what pot it comes out of. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And when we come back to you with a recommendation for award, we will know exactly where that funding source will be. It'll either be the Rent Stabilization Trust Fund or CDBG money.
Okay. Let me just make sure that one thing, because in looking at the RFP, I would just want to make sure that I believe the RSO ordinance was in the late 70s, that we have amended it a number of times. In fact, even today with an ordinance, that we ensure that this study looks at the entire body of work as it relates to not only the ordinance but the amendments throughout this last 20-plus years. Do we have an assurance that that's going to be covered?
Well, yeah. Certainly, the consultant would look at the RSO as it stands today with all of the amendments. Yeah. Now, if you want a breakdown of the actual impact of individual amendments, I think that would be a pretty complicated undertaking. We can seek to have that happen, but they would look at the ordinance in its entirety today.
Okay, but again, I don't think we necessarily want to have a study on each amendment, but if we look at the ordinance in general, but clearly that it's all encompassing as to what we know the ordinance is today. Also on the issues that we're confronted with, let me see, there's one other. Part of that evaluation, is it going to look at what impact on housing stock that has occurred since the RSO has been in position?
Yes.
Okay. And then I have one final. There's been, my understanding, at least one, maybe two studies that were done since RSO by the city, and want to make sure that those are incorporated in the study that, because I think part of the original RSO ordinance stated that there should be periodic reviews, and I think there's been at least two, and want to make sure that they are part of it.
Okay.
And that should do it. But thank you very much for looking at it. Colleagues, we'd like to move this forward. The funding is there. Housing Committee will determine as to what source the funding, but we want to move forward, get this on the street, and also asked the CLA to monitor that in our behalf to ensure that as the item goes out in returns and selection process, that's all reviewed by the CLA in addition to Housing Department. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. There are no further speakers, so Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll? Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item number 38, call special by Councilmember Gruhl.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, I just wanted to highlight for you today, there was a motion I introduced on graffiti on vehicles. We all, if you drive down the 101 freeway these days, you can see on one of the overpasses several graffiti vehicles that are parked there. We find them in our neighborhoods, and it becomes not only an unsightly part of the neighborhood, but it begins to affect the quality of life of the neighborhood by additional, sometimes things dumped in those locations. And we already have an ordinance that does allow us to cite owners when it's on private property, and also when it's both vehicles and actually your building, but not on the streets of Los Angeles. This would ask and direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance that would allow us to cite those individuals who do not either remove the graffiti or allow us to remove it with some of our graffiti abatement programs we have in the city of Los Angeles. It was during the Public Works Committee, there was discussion as well to broaden the scope to include potentially other mobile and immobile objects parked in the public right-of-way, such as storage bins, dumpsters, mobile toilets, mobile billboards, etc. And so I would ask for an aye vote today. We think this is critically important as we're trying to address the issue of graffiti and the quality of life in our neighborhoods. And so I'd ask you for an aye vote. We hope to have this ordinance come back expeditiously, Mr. City Attorney, so that we can have it in place as soon as possible.
We'll do our best.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gruhl. Our next speaker is Mr. Zine.
Wendy, I totally, completely support this. The only concern I have is the commercial vehicles that are parked where the owner of that vehicle is conducting business or whatever they're doing, and then some vandals vandalize that vehicle. I know we have a program for graffiti abatement, and we spend millions of dollars a year to remove graffiti from private and public property here in the city of Los Angeles, and it's a real blight on the city. I totally support this. The concern I have, it costs a lot more to repaint a vehicle than it does a wall, which we then pay for through the fund. My office is working to try and come up with something where those folks who are doing it, we have the $1,000 reward if someone apprehends or notifies and they're apprehended for graffiti. But if you're a small business person and you come from a family that had trucks, when those trucks are parked and then some vandals come by and graffiti that, and then we're going to issue that person a citation to say, well, I didn't do it, now you're penalizing me. We're trying to do something to remedy the situation so it doesn't cause inconvenience to the businesses, because we want to be pro-business. At the same time, the businessmen are being affected by this, and I'm sure they don't appreciate their trucks being vandalized. Many times they're white trucks, white sides, they may have the business name, and I see this all over as you do, because we travel from the valley and we see the overpasses and the trucks parked, and they're all commercial vehicles, and I think sometimes the people who own those get so frustrated with it, they go home at night, they come back, it's got graffiti, and then the next day more graffiti. And I understand the purpose of eliminating it, because it's a huge blight to the city, but I want to be sensitive to the business folks also. When the city attorney does this, we need to make sure that we're not going to penalize the victim, because in essence, the victim is the person who owns that truck, the company that owns that truck, the white panel truck that's being vandalized. And I hope more people turn these vandals in. School's back in session. Maybe some of the students who want to make $1,000 will turn into the police those who are doing graffiti, because we know it's not thousands of people, but there's those that are doing it. So I just want to balance it, that we do aggressive action on it, but we don't take out of the pockets of the people who own those trucks that are in commercial enterprises to fine them substantial fines, when in fact they're being victimized. And I don't know if the city can repaint those, because obviously repainting vehicles is very, very expensive compared to removing graffiti from a wall. So, I think, I don't know if the city attorney's office is here or not. Well, we do have one representative from the city attorney's office. But I want to support this, but I want to be sensitive that we don't do harm to the business community that in essence is being victimized by these vandals who continually vandalize glass, etching, and the walls of businesses. And I know in my district, we've got a very aggressive program, and the more we paint out, the more that happens, and now we're doing more enforcement to try and catch them and go after the parents for civil damages. And what really irritates me, and I think it happened in Eric Garcetti's district, is a mother was taking her kids around, and they got arrested. They were graffitiing areas in Silver Lake. The mother was participating in hauling her kids around in the car to go out and vandalize and graffiti a community, thousands of dollars in damage. So maybe we can hear from the city attorneys on that.
Yeah.
But it's a great idea. I just don't want to penalize the victims who are the owners of the vehicles.
I would be happy to highlight your concerns when I notify the assigned attorney on this matter.
We have to do something about it. It's a real issue and a real blight concern.
I just wanted to respond.
Well, Ms. Gruhl, Ms. Hahn was ahead of you. If you'd like to, Ms. Hahn, if you would like to let her go ahead of you,
Well,
that's fine with me.
I mean, I agree. I support this as well. I was wondering if you had considered the idea of making it kind of like a fix-it ticket, where once they prove they got the graffiti off, like if your light's out and you get a ticket, you just go back to the DMV or Highway Patrol and you say...
But there's fines on those now. The courts have now imposing...
There's no fix-it ticket.
There's no things to fix a ticket. You're still going to pay an administrative fee. The courts have, traffic school, you pay to go to school and you pay for the fine. The courts have been very nice in charging people for anything and everything. There's no more fix-it where there's no
Mr.
fine.
Zahn,
There's some kind of administrative
again,
fee.
please.
Pardon me?
Would you mind pressing your button?
I'm done.
Please? Thank you.
So I believe, just to respond to both Ms. Hahn and Mr. Zine, because I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, these are the victims that have the graffiti put on their property. My understanding and discussion with Building and Safety is the first time they go out, they don't necessarily give you a ticket. They say to you, look, you've got graffiti, you need it to be removed. It's the second or third time that you haven't removed it. And right now, again, I was surprised to learn that, in fact, we can already cite people on their own property. We just can't do it on public property. And I think the motion was trying to specifically address those that, again, kind of just leave it there thinking it's no big deal. Just like some businesses who say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything, and that's why we had the citation. So I'm hoping that with the ordinance and the implementation by Building and Safety that we can be supportive of the business community at the same time, responsibility, and work with them, and as you say, to go after those that are actually doing the graffiti, which is really our ultimate goal. But there may be some incentive for those business owners too, if they're going to be fined, to be looking for who those individuals that are doing it. But points well taken, and as we come back with the ordinance, we'll make sure those are taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. Ms. Hahn, if you were not done, this is your time. Ms. Hahn? Okay. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Gruhl, for taking this initiative. I know this is something that all of our neighborhoods feel a lot, and we see those trucks that are tagged. And I know there's a sympathy for the owners of these trucks who are not necessarily, they're obviously victims to the taggers, but it's just like the businesses that we have right now. The business's responsibility is to take care of graffiti that stays on their own walls. That is a city ordinance, and it's a similar thing here. Unfortunately, we have taggers that have really taken on now those trucks that are in the neighborhoods and other vehicles and just tag them up in Echo Park, which was referenced by Mr. Zine, not only because we had that horrible incident with a mother actually taking her children around to tag up Silver Lake and Echo Park and just really took over the entire neighborhood, but we also see this time and time again with these vehicles. I also wanted to rise, colleagues, because I wanted to let you all know there's so many of you that are interested in the graffiti stuff. We still have citywide funds for the Untag program, which is a way of getting more paint-out crews in your own district, and it's been a really successful model in CD13. So along with that, too, it's the use it or lose it money, so the most aggressive districts can utilize those money to get more paint out of graffiti, and it's something that's very important. But I want to thank Ms. Gruhl for moving forward with this. I look forward to supporting it and educating, I think, with some of our trucking associations and some of our operators to let them know it's their responsibility, so we don't come with the hammer first, but eventually letting them know really what it does to a neighborhood when those stay out there, stay tagged, and bring down the beauty of any of our neighborhoods here in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Reyes.
Yes. Thank you, Madam President. I was hoping that as we go through this program, we design it in such a way where we can establish a database that allows us to work with our senior lead officers to start connecting the actual incidences with locations and hopefully identify those who actually commit these crimes. In working on the street level with my constituents, I have spoken to these owners, and they literally just stare me in the face and say, look, what do you want me to do? Go after them while they're spraying on my truck and get shot? I call the police, they don't show up, and when they do, it's 20, 30 minutes later, and I live here. So I endanger my life every time I come in and out of my property because I'm identifying these people that are essentially damaging my property. So my hope would be that it's not just about removing paint, but it's dealing with the root of the problem in identifying these folks who are actually doing the tagging, who are putting the gang markers on these trucks. In my district, I have quite a few of them. We try our best to track them down, but there's no correlation between the incidents of crime, the connection with the police, and actually trying to go after those who commit these crimes. So in this process, Councilmember Grewal, are we looking at how we create or craft a database that we can start sharing with our men and women in blue so that we can have another tool to go after these folks who are committing these crimes? That's a question to you. Is that part of the ordinance? Is that something we can fold in?
We can ask them to do that as well. I'd be more than willing to take that as a friendly amendment to ask them to look at that as well with City Attorney's Office.
It's more of a database, a referral.
With the building and safety.
So we'll know where they're being parked and who are the local gang thugs who are harassing the folks who are owners of these trucks as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes. The next speaker is Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, just a question. Obviously, the broken window theory is part of our discussion sub rasa on this thing. The question, Wendy, I have for you is, if my truck gets graffiti, and I know we have a lot of that issue in Venice, I must tell you, it happens all the time. Are we going to somehow get the message out to the people who own these vehicles that unless they paint them over or do something, that they're going to get a citation? And what mechanism are we going to use to market this new law so that innocent people who are very upset that their trucks have been graffitiized aren't the ones who get a ticket? How do we deal with that?
I'll answer on your time, I guess, or press my button, but I think we can work out that and the implementations. For example, in the past when we had the 72-hour towing, vehicles, they'd get a little notice, and everyone pretty much knows now. That's not a new ordinance. But they did put a tag on there that says, your car has been parked over 72 hours, you need to move that. So we can think about that again the same way, which is you've been identified, it's been over a period of time that you've had this graffiti. Again, it's not the second day you've had the graffiti. This is, in my district specifically, those that they park their trucks on the street. That's where they decide they're not a business that has it behind a gate or anything like that. They just park them every night in the street and they have left them for graffiti. So it's finding that balance, but we can look into that as well.
Yeah, because to me, the best way would be to give them notice, maybe on their windshield, that says, we have a law in place, your truck is full of graffiti, you have X time to clean it up, otherwise we will cite you, so that warning is truly a warning rather than a citation. That would be great if we could do that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our final speaker will be Mr. Zine for the second time.
Wendy, you got a great controversy going, and it's a great program.
It's a good controversy.
I just want to comment, what Mr. Garcetti said, is we have millions of dollars that we spend annually to remove graffiti from buildings, public and private. We pay for that through the taxpayers' funds in this graffiti cleanup. When it comes to the private vehicle, the owner of that vehicle is going to have to go to a paint shop and have that either removed, if it can be removed without damaging paint, or have the truck repainted. Obviously, repeat offenders, repeat victims are going to get very frustrated with the system. I just wanted to say that for all the businesses that have that, we do that as a free service to them. Their tax dollars help them pay for that. And I don't know how we're ever going to find money to pay for the trucks and other vehicles that are being damaged, but it's a great program. It has obviously a decay on the city when we don't address it. So I think we can balance this, and with Mr. Rosendahl, a warning, take some action, but they're obviously responsible. And the bottom line is, if we can have more enforcement, I know the police department doesn't make it a major priority, it's not a Part 1 crime, but it's a major issue for the communities and deterioration of communities when they see that type of vandalism in communities. So we're with you. We just need to balance it to make sure we don't end up, our good, honest taxpayers, being victimized by the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. There are no more speakers on the queue, so Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item number 49, call special for card from the public.
Okay, item number 49, we have Sylvia Hawkins. Ms. Hawkins, if you'll come forward, and we are, to remind you, discussing removing a property at 410 East 84th Place from REAP. If you could-
Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ms. Sylvia Hawkins concerning number 49, which is dealing with housing, a resolution. There are many faking polices, buildings, ambulance departments, response and call requests. I did not know that it was illegal to go to each station to report a crime, fire, or a bleeding person on the street. We must call first the emergency number 911. Then these companies can come out to the scene. We must be aware that these antennas, dispatch, and radio dispatch connected is running these wine from churches, Washington, D.C., Miss Liberty in New York, towers that are located in the middle of the ocean illegally.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins.
Even American Red Cross
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins.
is sending.
That closes our public comment on this one. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard from the council? If not, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 58, call special by Councilmember Rosendahl.
Mr. Rosendahl, we have item number 58 before us.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could we ask the acting head of ITA to come on up for this? Oh, there he is. Great. It was great that you held the hearings. There's a big question about a lot of things right now, so let me just ask you flat out, the Nunez bill, which is now going to be the law of the land, how does that impact everything you've done in this note and file thing?
Well, it's essentially from the ability of this city to control the franchise price, it just nullified all of it. So
It
really,
nullified all of it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Colleagues.
Essentially, the best we can do is get a cooperative negotiations with Time Warner and Cox in the interim till January 2008 and see where we can remedy. But they're really under no obligation to comply. We don't really have any leveraging because we're no longer the franchising authority. It's now the state.
Mm-hmm. And what will this do to all of the public access issues where, when I used to be a cable guy, I had 700 producers who produced 3,500 shows in 3 studios with a staff of 12. Is that over with now?
Well, there is a provision in the bill, 1% of your revenue will go for PEG channels, public access, educational, governmental. So you will have your own resources, and you'll be able to decide how you want to treat those resources for PEG, government channels, whatever the facility.
So we, the city of Los Angeles, will get another point, roughly $4 million, is that right?
Yeah, it came out about $3.5 million would be the current estimate.
Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts about that 1% in terms of public access? Are we going to lose public access, or are we going to have it?
Well, it's difficult to understand what the cable companies are currently spending. The estimates are as high as $7-8 million on what they're currently spending. If that's the truth, it's been cut in half of our ability to use public access. So it's going to be a challenge to us to try to figure out how to manage that.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any sense of what the process will be like? For instance, I personally, who am a big believer in public access, giving the public electronic platform to speak their minds, rather than everything controlled by the big conglomerates and corporations and so on and so forth, saying that, what vision do you have about that? Would I be able to maybe get a pot of money, open up an access studio in the government building in one of my areas and work it? Or what do you envision?
You know, we haven't developed the vision. It's not going to be an easy task because the ability to be able to service 15 different areas in a local entity, I mean, that's so convenient. You're just not going to have those kind of resources, so it may be some regional areas you can go to. We're trying to really figure out what the resources that we're going to have, if we can finalize that number, what we can possibly do with it.
Do you have any sense of a timetable when the Nunez law goes into effect and all of a sudden we don't see public access anymore?
Well, you're going to see public access. The cable companies will be obligated to meet their current franchise up to January 2008.
January 2008, it will stay the way it is.
It should stay the way it is. So you have time. One thing you have to do some administrative things to make sure you can secure the 1%. As the telephone companies get in the access business, they can apply for a franchise as early as April 1st, 2007. So you have plenty of time to try to develop something before the cable companies don't have to provide that anymore.
Well, that's very good to hear. And the last question has to do with the entrance of the phone companies. Will they do a 5% franchise fee that we, the City of Los Angeles, will get, and a 1% access fee that we, the city, will get?
Yes, they have to do this. They have to contribute the same amount.
So in other words, the city's revenue will increase, not decrease, which are some of the stories we heard in the past that the Nunez bill passed.
Well, it's difficult, you know, there is a theory that, yeah, it should increase because the telephone companies may be able to track new customers. So your base increases and your revenue.
Of course they will. They wouldn't get into the video business if they didn't think they could make a living.
That makes sense. And they may be able to draw from DirecTV too, where you don't get any money.
That's right. Will we get a direct 5%, 6%, or will it go to the state first and come back?
Our understanding, the way the state, of course, the state has just passed the law. They're going to do regulations and they're going to do the rulemaking under the PUC. But our understanding is going to come directly to the city in both circumstances. We establish an ordinance and we can establish rules and methods about how the payment's supposed to be delivered, and it should come directly to the city.
Thank you. And colleagues, when this does develop into a reality for us, if we don't provide leadership on public access, it will die. I will tell you that. Right now, it'll be finished. But we have to take that money and we have to put together projects and programs that create and continue to keep the public engaged in public access. Otherwise, we're going to lose what I think is a very valuable platform for the public, which is public access. Thanks for your answers.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard from the council? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That's approved. Next item, please.
Item number 61, call special for cards from the public.
Okay, item 61, we have Matt Dowd and Michael Hunt.
Hello. Do we get 2 minutes for this, or?
You have a minute, sir, please.
Only 1 minute? Okay, this is about renewing a lease for the Internal Affairs Division at LAPD. I'm all in favor of this because they do need some good officers because they got a lot of work coming. There's a lot of complaints, especially Skid Row. If you're at the police commission last Tuesday or two Tuesdays ago, there were 10 people in there complaining about police harassment down on Skid Row, and they're complaining nobody's done anything about that, and no one's listening to the people. We have our own complaints they're not being followed up with, but I know Internal Affairs Division, they got a lot of work to do. I just want to point out it's $800,000, and why isn't there any rent control? It's gone up $73,000.
Our next speaker is Michael Hunt.
Good afternoon, City Council. Everybody's talking and not listening. I think that everybody should be listening instead of talking. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Weiss. Zine.
Can you please address the topic before us, Mr.
I like
Hunt?
to have everybody's full attention when I come
If you'll
up to
please
the
address
podium.
the topic before us, please.
Well, yeah, I want to stick to the topic if somebody's listening. Okay. I'd like to thank my colleague Matt Dow for saying, that they need money over there for their housing for the Internal Affairs and Inspector General. And I'd like to welcome everybody back from a 3 or 4 week weekend too. So please listen to what the people are saying and not just walk around. That's the problem. And thank you guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Anybody wishing to be heard from the council on this item? I do not have any other cards. I do not have any other cards on this. If we'll please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item 70, and that was called special for cards from the public.
Okay. Item 70. Why don't we take the special events together, 70 and 80 and 110, please. And I'd like to ask Matt Dowd to come forward on those three. I think set the clock at 3 minutes, please, on these three special events.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be back on the merry-go-round one more time for the dog and pony. And there's a lot of them. In fact, and there's some discrepancies too, I've noticed. And I know there's been 3 years in the making of trying to have some kind of control on these waivers of costs. But I do notice that certain items, the insurance is paid, is included in the waiver. And then you find other ones where the sponsors actually pay back the city, and in a lot of other ones where nobody pays back any money. So, I mean, if someone would like to go through the agenda and count up the amount involved in all of these things, it's probably more money that the EAA could use to settle their current dispute. I know I had number 110 singled out. That's the particular one. It's pretty expensive, $12,500, Mr. Garcetti, Huizar Cardenas. Various other co-sponsors are involved in this special event, but we see the waiver of all fees, including insurance. So I just think that we need to have some kind of rule. You brought through the other decorum rules pretty quickly. I'm sure we can have some kind of uniformity come through here. There's another item here I wanted to mention. Jack Weiss, he seems to be getting in on this act now too. I think looks like everybody's just trying to push through all their special events as quickly as they can before we get some kind of regulation, because as you can see, I mean, how many are there? There's, Mr. City Attorney, could you tell me how many dog and pony events we're paying for today? Must be like 30 or 40. It's probably like $150,000. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you. Hi, Janice.
Thank you. Also on these two items, Zuma Dog, we have on 70 and 110. 2 minutes to address us on those.
I get 3 minutes, right?
No, there's two cards in. There was 3 for the previous speaker. You have 2 minutes.
I'm getting jacked on my time here, all types of clerical errors. Anyway, this is about special waivers fee. This is a small little thing that has blown up to be a big-time event recently. Jack Weiss in 2002, somebody sent me a memo that he's concerned about improprieties. The special event waiver is supposed to be for nonprofit, small community events, open to the public in the community's best interest. However, what's happened is slowly the money's gone from being given to the small nonprofits who can't afford these things to help jumpstart a community event to paying for KTLA, all types of, commercial entities that do not deserve the money. And then Labor Day, there was an event, it doesn't matter where because it happened in the city, one of these carnivals where they openly fundraising, contact so-and-so's office, fundraising opportunities, 20,000 people, we're selling booths, we're selling food. You had to pay $800 for a booth. They had all types of ways, advertising to just get sucking as much money out of the community for this 3-day event. Tons of money was made. Where's the money? There seems to be a little problem as to what happened to the money. Some of the people involved aren't around. Their emails have been changed. It's not so easy to follow up on this. And then I believe they put in for a special waiver to absorb the cost. That's what the $800 to set up a booth, or that's what all the, money, all the advertising money, that's what it's for. So this is fraudulent. It's wasted money. If it's not open to the public for free and in the best interest of the community, then let the other people pay for it, okay? Or when you gather up all this money, pay for it with that. Now, it looks like the person that's most supposed to be listening isn't even paying attention, but I ain't going to call them out on that, y'all. But anyway, if you want to read more about this, Zuma Dog is now a contributing writer on Mayor Sam, the blog Mayor Sam. You can link it at zumadog.com, ZUMADOGG. And read more about this. It's going to be a big issue in this city, and people's careers might end over it. Zuma Dog for City Council.
On number 80, Jose Aguilar. On number 80.
Well, I want to congratulate the post-Emmy party for reimbursing the city of all fees and costs incurred. That's a good, ethical thing to do, especially when they're limousine liberals or millionaires or billionaires, and they really don't need the city to sponsor their events. They could sponsor it on their own. So I would like to congratulate them. The reason that I'm here, Mr. Garcetti, is I've been here coming over the years, and I've been very respectful to the city council. All of a sudden, I come to find out that my ability to petition you have been limited to 1 minute. I am imploring you and demanding of you to reinstate the 2-minute public comment rule. This will be a campaign issue. I'm looking at my councilman, Mr. Huizar. I guarantee you it will be a campaign issue because I take it as an affront not to be able to petition my elected representatives.
Thank you. Just so you know, as a point of information, we have a motion moving forward through Rules and Elections Committee to change our own rules, which right now limit public comment to a total of 10 minutes. So under those, we try to get as many speakers as possible. That's why it goes sometimes 2 and sometimes 1. If we can expand that, we'll be able to go back to 2 minutes. So that's going to be in Rules and Elections at some time. So hope so. Thank you. Appreciate it. That closes public comment on those items. If we can please open the roll on those 3, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Those are approved. Next order of business.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motions are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Huizar requests to be excused Friday, September 15th for city business, and also September 22nd, November 17th, and Tuesday, September 19th to leave at noon. A motion is required on the 15th request.
Okay, I will move that, and Mr. Parks seconds it. If there's no objection, that will be approved.
Councilmember Padilla requests to be excused Wednesday, September 13th for personal business, Friday, October 13th, Friday, October 20th to leave at 11:45, and Wednesday, October 18th. Those are all for personal business. A motion is required on the Wednesday, September 13th.
Okay, Mr. Weiss moves, Mr. Wesson seconds. If there's no objection, that excuse will be granted as well.
Councilmember Grue requests to be excused to leave at 12:30 Wednesday, September 13th for city business, and November 21st and 22nd for personal business. A motion is required on the 13th.
Mr. Huizar will move, and Mr. Cardenas will second. If there's no objection, that too will be unanimously approved, and that will be granted.
Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused September 26th, 27th, and 29th for city business. Those meet council policy.
All right, those excuses are granted.
Councilmember Wesson requests to be excused Wednesday, October 4th for city business. That meets council policy.
All right, that excuse is granted as well.
Councilmember Labange requests to be excused Tuesday, October 3rd for city business. A motion is required.
All right, Mr. Huizar moves, and Ms. Hahn seconds. If there's no objection, that excuse will be unanimously approved.
Councilmember Zine requests to be excused October 18th and Friday, September 15th to leave at 11:45 for city business. Those meet council policy.
Okay, those excuses are granted.
And that clears the deck.
Okay, now it's time for announcements from council members. Council members, do we have any announcements? Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of announcements. One, the monthly Urban Issues Breakfast Forum at the African American Museum will be September the 15th, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. The topic for this month is the 5th anniversary of the 9/11, and Chief Ron Boyd from the Harbor Department will be the speaker. And then the Urban League, which we've worked very closely with, will have their annual fundraiser golf tournament and fashion show at September 22nd, 2008, 12 noon at the Pacific Palms Conference Resort, Industry Hills. And then finally, we've been fortunate enough to have a 200,000 square foot commercial building that's being constructed at 830 Vermont. and the developer is having a community construction career forum on September the 23rd. It's going to be at the Constituent Center at 8475 South Vermont between 8:30 and noon, September 23rd.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. To members, I bring greetings from our sister city of Berlin, where I went to Berlin and met with the mayor. I met the mayor of Paris. Funny story, Bill. As I met the mayor of Paris, he is one of your people, and he turned and said, "Say hello to my good friend Gavin." And I said, and his aide stuck his head in. "That's a little north, Mr. Mayor. It's Los Angeles." And he said, "Oh, say hello to Antonio Villaraigosa." But Berlin is prepared for our 40th anniversary celebration of our partnership, and I'm looking forward to events next year where Mayor Klaus Wowereit will come from Berlin and be able to celebrate this fine partnership.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Cardenas and then Ms. Hahn.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to officially welcome back our Sergeant-at-Arms, Steve Morris. Had a little bike accident. Looking good, walking around just fine. How do you feel? Glad to have you back. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cardenas. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Well, in the spirit of Tom Labange, I also, during our recess, visited Split, Croatia, one of our sister cities, and they bring greetings to us. And I was also in Ischia, Italy, meeting with the acting mayor there, who will be traveling to Los Angeles in November as we establish the first sister city in Italy, Ischia. And we're planning a week-long event here in Los Angeles that will be exciting. And I also reestablished a friendship pack in Komiža, Croatia. It was originally a friendship between San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Komiža, but it was when it was in Yugoslavia. So we updated it now that they're an independent state of Croatia. So it was very exciting. And there's, in San Pedro, we have about 30,000 Croatians that reside there, and many of them have come from this tiny island in Croatia, a fishing village. So it was very exciting to meet people who have relatives here in Los Angeles.
Thank you very much. Mr. Labange.
As was mentioned, was our city's birthday on the 4th of September, and our great mayor led the effort from the Mission San Gabriel of the 9-mile walk. But also our great councilman, Jose Huizar, was there to greet everybody in the plaza and doing a great job of redevelopment in that as well. And also Mr. Zine and Ms. Gruhl was there, which is so important. I thank you for those signs. But Mr. Garcetti, but what's so important, on the 10th of September, it was another birthday, and it was a great birthday of Jose Huizar this last September. And so we want to salute him. And he's 31, says Alex Padilla. Happy birthday, Jose, and I just think it's so wonderful to see you again, and I missed you during the break. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange, for that thoughtful tribute. Anybody else with announcements? Yes, Mr. Zine.
Add that we see our council president with the new look and the short hairdo, and we see we see Tony Cardenas with the goatee, and Alex Padilla with a beard, and Ed Reyes with a goatee. So I'm making a pledge that, and Bill Rosendal's followed my hairstyle. God's created that for us, Bill. But I think now we need to get into the goatee look, so that'll be the new trend. Huh? What? What about, you don't want to grow a goatee, Jen. You don't want to grow a goatee.
All right, before this quickly deteriorates, yes, Mr. Wesson.
I just can't help myself
Mr.
when it
Wesson,
relates
the mustached.
to this issue. I have to rise to inform the council that a memo was distributed, initiated by Mr. Cardenas, and it was sent to Mr. Padilla and Mr. Reyes and Mr. Huizar, and suggesting that upon their return, they would have added facial hair. So I asked Mr. Huizar I said, you must, maybe you did not receive the memo. He said, yes, Mr. Wesson, I did. I just can't grow anything.
No, but I can't do it, Mr. Wesson.
All right.
I've tried.
Mr. Wesson with a very nice mustache. Thank you, sir. All right. Any other announcements, public relevance? All right. If I can ask everybody please to rise for adjourning motions. Colleagues, allow me to begin with the passing of Melanie Lomax, a commissioner on a number of different city commissions, most notably the Police Commission, but also served on the Airport Commission, on an Information Technology Board as well. Somebody who had a monumental impact on this city, who died tragically in a car accident. Details have not yet all been finalized on that, but Melanie Lomax was very familiar to this body, to this city, somebody who was unafraid to stand up for the values that she believed in, never backed down from any fight, and certainly was a woman who brought the passion to each and every responsibility that she was given through a succession of different mayors. Her passing marks a certain time here in Los Angeles in which we went through some of the most difficult years of searching for our own identity, and Ms. Lomax was at the forefront of pushing questions forward here in the city to make us as just and as representative a city as we possibly could be. I know there's a number of people who'd like to probably add their thoughts, but we'll of course share more details about any services in her honor shortly. Starting with Ms. Gruhl, we'll just go around the horseshoe.
I just want to add also my deep sadness, was shocked to hear about it yesterday. And Melanie was a familiar face around Mayor Bradley's office as I grew up in that office, and we always called her the third daughter of Mayor Bradley. He had a special relationship with her. She was someone who served the city on a number of, she mentioned Mr. Garcetti, commissions. I saw her a few months ago and at an event at the Skirball Center, and she was so proud of her family there and her efforts, and she just was an individual who spoke her mind, told you what she thought, and stood up for people who didn't have a voice in many instances. And I know that there are so many people who are thinking today of what she did to make their lives better, and I just want to add my condolences as well. We'll miss her in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Condolence to the Lomax family for a tragedy of an accident of such kind, well before her time, and saddened by the news of her passing.
Thank you. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to say, first of all, thanks to Tom that called Sunday evening. I just come in and made aware of this, but Melanie was such a unique person and grew up in an era in which, particularly amongst minorities, that era that said if you get a great education, that's the one thing that can't be taken away from you. And when you look at her and her father, her mother, her brother, and in fact, many of you may not be aware, brother's the president of the United Negro College Fund, was just in LA this weekend at the Kodak with their major event. So the next day she passes away. But her brother was a elected official from Atlanta, and now with the United Negro College Fund. The one thing that when I first met Melanie that was unique, and she was never long on pleasantries. She would, when she finished her conversation, she just hung up the phone. And so when you heard the buzz, you knew that it was obviously the conversation was over. And it was nothing ill-intended, but that was just the way she was. She would call you, she'd get the 3 or 4 points over, and then when she hung up the phone, you'd say, well, obviously, we're through, and you'd follow suit. But she was a very unique person, very courageous, always spoke her mind. But I think what I always enjoyed with her, she could debate and be opposed to you on an issue, but you never lost your friendship. She didn't carry it over as it relates to a personal issue, but the issue that was at hand, she would fight to the end as far as bringing her point across.
Ms. Berry, and then, I'm sorry, then Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. I also wanted to just say a few words and extend my sympathies publicly to her family. Melanie is somebody who was bold, she was direct, she was always forthright, she never had a hidden agenda, and she was always fighting on behalf of people who needed it the most. And I hope in years to come her children will be able to realize that not only was she a role model, she was a strong African-American female role model with an education, who was articulate and very, very courageous and very brave.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Melanie Lomax and I go back 25 years of a relationship, and I just spoke with her a couple of weeks ago about an issue. When I started my television career, I had Melanie Lomax on that panel as often as her schedule would allow me. Why? Because she's honest, was honest, straightforward, candid, refreshing in her honesty, strong, starting with the police commission, and then when she was on the cable commission, she really gave it to the cable companies about customer service issues. She wasn't afraid of anybody or anything. She was a dear friend. I'm still in shock over her passing, and may she rest in peace.
Mr. Wesson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President and members. You know, there's really not much more to add, but I do, as did Chief Parks, I want to thank Council Member Labange for giving me a call Sunday evening. I think that his call was shocking enough, but to read it in the paper, I think would have really thrown me for a loop. I didn't know her for 20 years, but I knew her since the first day that I came into this building back in 1987. And the one thing that I can say about her is that she was a phenomenal attorney. She put on no airs. She didn't con you. She was straightforward. She argued her cases based on the merit of those cases, and I don't think anyone could say that if she served them as their attorney, that she didn't do a good job. So I too want to say to the family that I'm sorry. They have my sympathy, the sympathy of this council, and that we will miss her, not just in the African American community, but through the Los Angeles family, because she was a fighter for all. She was a public servant. She could have just done her law practice and been phenomenally rich, but she made enough time to give back to the community that she wanted to make a better place. We are a better place because we had an opportunity to see her work and to get to know her. So I would suggest that all members.
Yep. It will be all members. Anybody else wishing to add their wishes about Ms. Lomax? Okay. Mr. Weezer? I'm sorry, Ms. Hahn?
Yeah.
Next.
Thank you. Members, I would like us to pay tribute to the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, who recently passed away way before his time. He was only 44, young wife, 2 young kids in a tragic accident while once again filming something for one of his shows, was pierced in the heart by a stingray. But you know, he was obviously an international celebrity, but you know, he was a friend of Los Angeles. When he heard that we had an alligator in Harbor City, when he came out here to film a segment on the Jay Leno show, he called my office and asked if he might meet me out at the lake and see what he could do to help us capture Reggie, because he wanted to see a good ending to that story, and he wanted Reggie to be safe and sound someday in our LA Zoo. So I had an incredible morning with Steve Irwin, and I'll tell you, I've had my share of meetings with gator wranglers, and I will tell you, Steve Irwin was a down-to-earth, genuine, gentle human being that it was clear to me in the first 10 seconds that he really loved life, loved animals, and really had a passion for, really taking care of them. The way he has educated, I think, the world about animals and about conservation will really probably be unmatched forever. But he was ready to come back. We were in contact with him in his office weekly, and he was waiting for Reggie to come out of hibernation, and he was on the next plane to come help us catch him. So I think it's interesting that he, of all the things he did, he was a friend of Los Angeles, and we will miss him very much. I'd like us to also adjourn in the memory of Anthony Wayne Owens, Jr., who was unfortunately killed in a drive-by shooting at Imperial Courts on August 30th. Tony was the son of a friend of mine, Cynthia Mendenhall. Cynthia, who's known as Sister Soldier in the Watts community, has been a member of my Watts gang task force. She has been committed to peace in the Watts community, so it's just such a tragedy that her own son was killed in a drive-by shooting. He's survived by his mother, brothers, sisters, and 5 kids of his own, and a lot of friends and family. We hope that he will rest in peace, since he believed in peace. I'd also like us to adjourn in the memory of Dorothy Freeman, who was a very active member of the Athens on the Hill community and a 47-year resident of Los Angeles. She was 73, and Dorothy was one of those who, as soon as I got elected, she wanted to make sure that she got involved in the community, was involved in the neighborhood council. When we had the burglar alarm issue in the city of Los Angeles, Dorothy was very upset that the police department had decided to quit responding to burglar alarms, and she felt like seniors and women particularly were going to be vulnerable as a result of that. She came down to the city council and testified on how that was such a bad idea, and then volunteered to be on that task force that we all appointed, who I think came up with a much better burglar alarm policy that now is implemented by the Los Angeles Police Department. So she certainly has made a difference in her life, in our life, and the community. She was just honored by our city attorney, Rocky Delgadillo, as one of the LA Pearls, and one of the great people in Los Angeles that made a difference. She's survived by her husband, Ron Freeman, her children, Gregory, Curtis, Jimmy, Yvonne, Marcella, and Antoinette. I'd also like us to adjourn in the memory of Sweet Alice's granddaughter, Lynette Bowers, passed away after a lengthy battle with cancer. She was only in her 30s. And we all know Sweet Alice, who certainly has made such a difference in this community, and it's too bad that she lost one of her granddaughters. And Lynette is certainly survived by a large, loving family, and she'll be greatly missed.
Thank you. Well, all members on that? Thank you.
And one more. The former managing editor of the LA Watts Times, Joe Nizzell, passed away last week after battling cancer. He was 62. He was also the past editor of Players Magazine and the LA Sentinel. He penned more than 60 books, including a series of biographies of Black celebrities like Thurgood Marshall, B.B. King, and Magic Johnson. He's survived by his son, Kim.
Second from Ms. Berry on that. Thank you. You guys want to second that as well? Okay, Mr. Parks and Mr. Labange as well. Mr. Weezer next.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's with great sadness that I ask that we adjourn in the memory of a great World War II hero from Boyle Heights and a new friend to this City Council, Guy Gabaldon. As many of you recall, we honored Guy Gabaldon in this council July 7th. On that day, he captivated us with his humor and his stories, and he was so full of life that it would have been impossible to predict that just 2 months later he would have left us on this earth. Guy died August 31st at his hometown in Old Town, Florida, of a heart attack, and honestly, when I got the call from my staff and from Council President Garcetti, I was truly saddened to hear that he had left us from this earth. He was 80 years old. He left a devoted wife, Ohana, and 9 children. 2 additional children predeceased him. And as we all talked about the day we honored him here in council, he was known as the Pied Piper of Saipan for his uncanny ability to capture more than 1,000 Japanese prisoners of war. He used Japanese language skills learned during his Boyle Heights childhood, which he spent with a Japanese-American family that took him in. When the family was sent to an internment camp, Guy joined the Marines, and Guy's bravery during the war saved countless Japanese and American lives and shortened the Pacific War effort. Although Guy was nominated for the Medal of Honor by his commanding officer, he was never awarded it. That recognition is long overdue. I ask that my colleagues, that we all support a motion I have introduced calling on the President, the U.S. Congress, and the U.S. Marine Corps to correct the historic injustice and to recognize a true American hero. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all members on that. Mr. Labange?
Yeah,
Mr. Garcetti, thank you. Thank you for opening the meeting up in the moment of silence for those victims of 9/11. And I also would like to just all us remember those who are tragically killed in action in Afghanistan and in Iraq at the time of our absence and every day. It's a very, being outside the United States for 10 days and listening to international news and how it's perceived, you see things, and then you see American service people traveling and the effects. So I think we should stand for them every day. In the absence, I'd also like to ask all members for Steve Irwin, who I think was a great friend of Los Angeles, and that's very special to add to his family's tribute for his life. A gentleman by the name of Robert F. Smith was an executive running the San Diego Tourism Board, a civic leader and a humanitarian. He passed, unfortunately. He's survived by his wife, Mary, and his children, Peter, Mary Frances, and Barbara. Mary Frances is a wonderful teacher at Ivanhoe School in Los Angeles. We ask that we adjourn in memory of Robert F. Smith. Additionally, John Raphael DeClue, Jr. was an accomplished structural engineer who's had over a 45-year career with Bechtel Corporation and then the Ralph Parsons Corporation. He's survived by his wife of 62 years. What a wonderful marriage. Leona Hon and 7 children. As we adjourn in memory of John Raphael DeClue, Jr. And finally, this is more tragic for us. If we all see the young explorers who work for the Los Angeles Police Department as volunteers, this young explorer, Jessica Anderson, who was involved with a vehicle collision, a personal accident. She was a volunteer explorer at Northeast Division for over 3 years and did over 400 hours of volunteer community service, from the marathon to the triathlon to various parades in the Northeast area. She was a student at James Monroe Police Academy Magnet School. She's survived by her mother Sheila and her brother Christopher, who also was an explorer at Northeast. As we adjourn in memory of Jessica Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Are there adjourning motions, Mr. Park? Adjourning motions, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nellie Hinman, she just died, again in a car wreck. I mean, we're having car wrecks around here. And she died on August 24th. She was a resident of Hollywood for over 40 years. She was a nurse at Cedars-Sinai Hospital for 30 years. She's survived by her son, Dennis, is how I know her, and he is co-chair of my Empowerment Congress Public Safety Committee, and he's a retired LA policeman where he spent 31 years as an officer, and then he came right into helping us in the community, and his mother died so suddenly, and may she rest in peace. The second one I have is Victor Hernandez, and this comes from the Bureau of Engineering. Here's a man that was a senior system analyst too and an assistant division head with engineering. He died on Monday, September 4th at the age of 64. He began his career with the city in 1969 as a transportation engineer with city planning. Victor was known for implementing many innovative and advanced technology solutions. Under Victor's direction, Engineering Systems Section gained recognition as a technology leader. He will be deeply missed by the Bureau of Engineering, by his colleagues, as well as his staff. Victor is survived by his wife, Fida, 3 loving children, and 1 grandchild.
Thank you.
All members?
Do all members on that?
Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
Retired Los Angeles police officer Michael V. Ogney passed away August 29th. Michael worked for me at Valley Traffic Division, 57 years of age, passed away August 29th, surrounded by his family. After high school, Mike received his degree in police science, joined the Los Angeles Police Department at the age of 21. Served the LAPD for 20 years before moving to Santa Rosa with his wife Judy, and they ran a bed and breakfast inn. Mike loved working with his hands. He was a master craftsman. He was in the midst of beautiful home addition when he tragically died. One of his passions was building and flying sailplanes in the hills near his home. Man of few words, actions spoke for themselves. He was dedicated servant to the Lord and served as an elder with the Gateway Christian Church and dedicated his life to helping others. To know him was to love him. He will be deeply missed by his family and friends. Survived by his wife Judy of 37 years, daughters Jennifer and Jessica, stepmother Wanda, mother-in-law Maxine, brother Dave, brother Steve, sister Karen, and his first grandchild is on the way. I still remember seeing Michael at a church on Balboa, and he was on his day off, and he was doing gardening work at the church. Very, very quiet police officer, motorcycle officer, used to work collision investigation and went to motorcycle. he wouldn't talk a lot. He was very, very quiet, but he had a lot of heart, a lot of soul, a lot of spirit. He did his 20 years, but he did a lot with the community in his own way, and retired to the bed and breakfast, and just wanted to enjoy his retirement, and passed away of a heart attack at that young age. May Mike Ogney rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. And lastly, colleagues, ask that we adjourn today in memory of Ed Zola, a dear friend of my family and of mine, who passed away while we were on break, also of a heart attack at a young age of 60, an avid cyclist and was in great shape. He was on vacation when he was hit by a heart attack while driving with his family. He was somebody who was very active as a business person with his wife, Susan. They run the Inn at Playa del Rey in the city of Los Angeles, a beautiful bed and breakfast, and founded 2 different manufacturing companies, and was invested in much real estate in the Los Angeles area. But just a wonderful man who gave to this city as a member of the affordable housing or the housing crisis task force, as a developer who wanted to make a difference on the area of affordable housing. He served on one of the subcommittees to help assist in affordable housing getting built more quickly, and served in that official capacity here in Los Angeles. His memorial service was last week at University Synagogue, and we ask in lieu of flowers that the family request donations to be made to the Edward Zola Memorial Scholarship Program, care of GNA 3015 Main Street, Suite 300 in Santa Monica, 90405. May Ed Zola rest in peace, and our thoughts are with his wife, his children, and his entire family. All members on that, okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you. We will next be meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, that is September the 13th at 10 a.m. here in City Council chambers. This meeting of the City Council is adjourned. Have a great afternoon.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
We now join our scheduled program in progress.